TNA is the best wrestling in the whole world.
The quantity of speech is not always indicative of the quality of thought.
Think this is funny? No. Why would you do this? Told to. Get a life! Get a life!
You've been painting in an unventilated room. Maybe you need to go back to rehab.
Come on, now that wasn't necessary.
What's the capital of Thailand?
Why don't you indulge me with your geography, big guy? Indulge me, let me know, tell me.
Bangkok.
What a shot!
This is BS. This sucks. I've lost my objectivity, and I don't give a damn.
Welcome everybody to You've Got to Be Kidding Me episode number 46. We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. On this episode, we are talking about Destination X 2006 in the month that was March 2006. I'm Garrett Kidney. I'm joined by Liam Jones.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Oh, that's better than when I started this call with you. You were like, oh, when I started, now you're doing okay. So it's like a steady improvement.
Well, it's because I'm faking it for the audio.
You're putting on a show for the listeners. That's good.
Yes, of course. I think I might watch every Dragon Ball movie.
Oh, yeah. How many is there?
17?
That's okay. That's doable.
I've seen most of them already.
How self-contained are the movies?
Entirely.
So they're their own, like, canon?
The latest two. Yeah, like, all of the Dragon Ball movies kind of exist outside of canon. Well, if you want the true Dragon Ball movie lore, is that the Dragon Ball movies are basically abridged, shortened versions of whatever arc was happening in the TV show.
Interesting. So they just chop them. How much at a time, then, do they cover?
Okay, so, like, Dragon Ball Z, second arc, the Namek, Frieza, whatever you want to call it, arc, right? That giant thing took up hundreds of hours. Basically, then they were like, let's do the movie, and for the movie, they're like, we don't have Frieza, we have his brother Cooler. And we're gonna do that for the 2 hours. And then, like, oh, Frieza gets big transformation, Cooler gets all those transformations. Like, that, so they just do a 1-to-1, but they condense it into movie form with a villain that is, like, essentially the same as whatever villain is happening in the TV show.
So it's like almost like an alternate reality version of the story.
Yes. But it's been very successful because those characters are basically just different designs of existing characters or themes that are happening in the show. They've all become very popular, so they've really built out their rogues gallery because of that, even though most of these characters have remained in, like, the movie non-canon place, but, like, in other mediums, like the video games and stuff, they bring them all over and it's wild.
And that is, like, a fun thing because it is the thing as a series sprawls. It becomes increasingly less approachable and increasingly more daunting as you are, like, how, like, the question of how do I start with Dragon Ball is a fair one, and I imagine one Dragon Ball fans are sick of answering. But
well, the answer is you watch Kai.
But, like, the movies do seem like a nice thing to be like, listen, you can take a relatively small time investment into 17 movies. It is still quite big. But it is like much smaller than watching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. So you can condense the feeling of Dragon Ball into this other thing if you would like to understand it without committing half your life to it.
Yeah, and some of the movies are really good, and some of them are...
Well, that is life.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. Go ahead, watch them. They're great. And like you said, they do definitely condense the feeling of the show. And if that's something you just want to, like... Honestly, that might be a better... I've been rewatching Dragon Ball anyway, like, because as a kid, like... I think they actually, like... What happened is the airing of the original Dragon Ball kind of, like, just got cut off really early because they started doing Dragon Ball Z. And they were like, boom, throw this on there. So, like, I got to see bits and pieces of it as a kid, but I didn't get to see all of it. So I've been rewatching the original Dragon Ball series. But yeah, now movies. R.I.P. Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, because, like, Dragon Ball Z was the only anime that really, like, penetrated any kind of friend group I knew as a kid.
You guys went into the Pokemon?
Well, like, I don't count Pokemon, weirdly, you know?
It is an anime, come on now.
But it's like, it's too mainstream, you know? Like,
but Dragon Ball isn't?
You see, I think Pokemon is, like, in a completely different stratosphere from Dragon Ball, you know?
Yeah... Oh yeah, because Pokemon is a multimedia, like, giant organism in of itself.
Because, like, it is weird to put them in different boxes, because you said they are both anime. But, like, Pokemon is this, like, top 5 recognized thing on Earth, and Dragon Ball is the most famous anime. You know what I mean?
Ironically, I think Dragon Ball's, like, top 15 most like you throw a Goku at anyone and people know who a Goku is.
When I was a kid, in terms of like the niche anime, not Digimon or Pokemon, not if there is no monster collecting involved, we'll put that stipulation on it.
I don't think you can throw niche on Dragon Ball, but I will just concede the point at this point for your story.
But like a 65-year-old will know Pikachu, but probably won't know Goku. You know what I mean? Am I crazy to put these in different boxes arbitrarily?
I don't know, man.
But yeah, Dragon Ball was like the only kind of nerd shit anime to penetrate my like friend groups, because it was on was a Cartoon Network over here. But I never actually watched any of it. I never got into it. My Akira Toriyama stuff was Chrono Trigger, who he did the character designs for that, and that's one of my favorite games of all time. And those characters are awesome. And you look at those characters and like they are Akira Toriyama characters. You're like, yes, that man had a style.
I remember, because like I've said it before, like my anime watching was Cartoon Network from like 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. They would do like a 3-show run where they would do like 2 episodes of each show, and it would be Dragon Ball into Naruto into something more obscure, like an Inuyasha or a Trigun or something like that. And then, but like the other time was when I was a little older and we used to have Toasted TV in the morning, which was like a kid's breakfast show. And I remember they started like, they had whatever Batman series was on, and they had whatever like kind of more recent-ish Pokemon series was on, but then they also just had Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, hell yeah, I get to watch Dragon Ball Z in the morning. That was always a 9 p.m. activity.
Yeah, I don't think any other anime they aired on like Cartoon Network here. Maybe it was because like it might have been in the mid-2000s when I would have been a little older and not keeping up with every Cartoon Network show. But Dragon Ball Z is the only one I remember actually being on.
Because we had Toonami, which was like the little anime portion of the night.
So you're going to take on that as a little project, watch those movies?
Yeah, might as well. I mean, I've seen all of them already, I think. But like, I could like just chuck them on in the background sort of stuff.
Because that would violate my one New Year's resolution, which I have so far stuck to.
Which is?
No old stuff in 2024, with obviously 2 major exceptions. Podcast TNA, which I can't cut that out. And if I want to watch something to prepare for a new thing, or play a game to prepare for a new thing, I can do that. So I didn't do it for Dune, but if I wanted to watch Dune to prepare for Dune 2, I can do that. But I found myself in recent years falling far too much back on like comfort watching stuff, and comfort watching stuff I know I like. So like my New Year's resolution is like all new things.
Challenge oneself with new media.
So far, I have stuck to that.
This is why you've been ignoring Naruto, obviously.
No, Naruto's a new thing. Like I could like, because finishing things that I haven't
first
finished
watch
okay.
through like stuff you haven't seen. I thought you meant strictly 2024 release.
It does push me in the direction of that just naturally, but like it's just not going back to rewatch or replay anything, because like I've been doing that too much. So I'm just like everything is like I've been finishing off some 2023 games and stuff like that, but I haven't been like, I'm gonna play Final Fantasy 7 again or watch Parks and Recreation again. I'm like, no, new things I have not yet experienced.
See, like, I don't think I do that very often. Like, I do try to live in, like, I sort of drench myself in nostalgia as a coping mechanism, but it's nostalgic for stuff I haven't seen since I was 6.
Yeah.
So it kind of just counts as new viewership because I'm really like cognitively paying attention to it for the first time. Like when I rewatched all of like original run first series Yu-Gi-Oh, and I did that with the first Pokemon stuff as well, and it's like it's nostalgia, but it's also again stuff I haven't seen since I was 10. So I feel like it's also new.
Yeah, because it became my pandemic coping mechanism in that, like, I rewatched Community, I rewatched Parks and Rec, I rewatched Friend, I rewatched, I think, every episode of The West Wing twice, though I was falling asleep to The West Wing, it barely counts. But it was just like, comfort, I need to escape the world. And now I was like, let me challenge my brain and continue to watch and play new things and experience new things for the year of 2024, at least.
I feel like I do that more with wrestling than I do with other media. I'm like, I will go back to, if I'm in, it's so funny, every time I get like really depressed, I'm like, I'll be back in my 90s Joshi bullshit.
It's me at AMW entrances.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't like I have not rewatched a lot of wrestling from like the last 15 years.
Yeah. Well, like, the most I go back to is, like, Moments trademark. like debuts or big wins or angles or whatever, but I don't go back. I can't just be like, I'm going to chuck on this 2012 pay-per-view.
Yeah, you want the like little dopamine hit.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, because like I like to relive moments and think of how cool they were. But
like if there's a great match, like I've not rewatched like any of the Okada Omega matches. I haven't watched like anything. Like I don't rewatch wrestling a lot anymore.
I rewatch it the year that it happens. But then, like, I don't really touch it later.
I know a lot of people will do, like, rewatches at, like, end of year for, like, best of lists, as opposed to my lists, which are vibes and chaos. But, yeah, it's because it's the interesting thing going back through Raintakers, because I haven't rewatched any of that stuff. Any of it. I've only seen it in real time. And, like, when you were younger, you used to rewatch more stuff because you had access to less stuff. So it's like, I've got the SummerSlam 2002 DVD, so I'm watching this thing 6 times.
God, there was something recently that was that for me, and God, what was it? It was really dumb.
Or you even have nostalgia for bad shows like Sold Out 2000, which I had on videotape. So it's just like, that's...
Unforgiven 2008.
Good show.
I watched the shit out of that show. But that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking of like a pop culture thing where I was like, I didn't have anything, but I had this, so I know it all. Oh, it was Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back.
Okay, that's much more specific.
Yeah, because when I got like my iPod mini as a kid, right, I didn't have money to buy songs, but for some reason Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back was one of those songs that I had, and I used to crank it constantly every day.
So if you hear that song now, it gives you just vivid memories.
It's like I couldn't do it like off the dome, but it is crazy how once it plays, I know every lyric.
You just slip back into it.
It reawakens it.
I wonder if kids still have experiences like that.
Well, yeah, it's a good point because now they have access to everything all the time.
Or they're just like, I'm a Roblox kid or I'm a Fortnite kid.
Oh yeah, they're just like, I watch my Minecraft Let's Plays. And that to be fair, I can't criticize that. I have nostalgia for Let's Players. I grew up watching people play video games too. It was just different video games. And I have nostalgia for them. They did a reunion stream of one of my first YouTube channels that I just like group YouTubers, like one of the first sort of like groups that I ever watched as a kid did a reunion, and like I don't give a fuck about any of these people now, but I still fucking watch that goddamn stream.
Yeah, it is interesting to think like culture now is like the monoculture or everything. It's like Netflix or Fortnite, which is like the two ends of the extreme. It's like thousands of options or the one thing over and over again.
It is crazy how like our monkey brains have regressed to just like, show me the colors in the order I like to see them. Give me familiarity. I don't want to watch anything new. Or like, I want to watch new things by the same people.
Yeah, it's just like, keep me in my comfort zone so that I can be happy. Because this thing I'm experiencing is an escape from the rest of it.
Because the world is chaotic and we're all terrified of it.
So you need like comfort and stability and order in the things you watch. Because you don't get that in other parts of your life.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
Deep and psychological, it turns out.
This is what people came here for. This breakdown of the psyche of the modern consumer.
And if you love that so much, you can head to tnachat.com or patreon.com/kiddingme, where you can subscribe and get access to our show notes, which for this month is 17 pages worth of notes about Destination X in March 2006 in TNA. You can get our watch along of Destination X 2006, which is available right now. You can get our secondary shows, 2 of which are ongoing. Raintakers, of course. The next episode we have, well, I've decided unilaterally we're skipping World Tag League, so the next episode of Raintakers will be the Wrestle Kingdom 2014 episode, and then our ongoing Gift of the Pods Lucha Underground show is also there for you.
This man wants to skip the Luke Gallows debut.
I not only want to, I have decided we are. So all of our past shows covering Global Force Wrestling, Ring Ka King, the 2010 Monday Night Wars, PWG, Wrestling Society X, they're all there waiting for you. tnachat.com, patreon.com/kiddingme, alongside our drafts and our end of year awards and our review of that Chris Rock movie, our review of Macho Man Randy Savage's album. If you dig into the archives, there is many things waiting for you. tnachat.com, patreon.com/kiddingme. Also, ad-free episode on the $1 tier. If you're like, I don't like the occasional ads that play while I'm listening to this, you can get rid of them for $1. Patreon.
I love ads, personally.
They do support the things I like.
Oh, sorry, I got quote tweeted by AEW Full Wrestling.
Oh, please tell me. But no, set it up. We can't just talk about the Twitter thing without actually telling people what we're talking about. So please tell me with the context in which AEW Full Wrestling has decided to quote tweet you.
Yeah, so they were having some bullshit thing about TNA, and they said the big difference between TNA at the time and AEW at this time is that TNA did not run 10,000-seat arenas to start. They started off small, had a solid wrestling mind overseeing it, and knew how to build stars around their angles, stings, bookers, and RVDs, so stop it. Now, there's many things wrong with that state. First of all, TNA did run big arenas at the start. It failed, so then they gave up and they found their one location. They solid wrestling mind overseeing it is some hell of for a Vince Russo-led company?
Even if you want to be extremely generous to that person, and you shouldn't be because they're wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. Even if they're like Jerry Jarrett.
Yeah. Who is the best of all the bad wrestling minds overseeing it, by the way.
Yeah. He was also like deeply, horribly out of touch with the mainstream wrestling product.
And then, of course, the other hilarious is building around stars, angles, stings, bookers, and RVDs. I remember seeing all of their classics in the Nashville Fairgrounds. I don't know about you.
And they definitely didn't overshadow the Styles and Daniels of the world in like 2008.
Yeah, and anyway, I just simply posted that it was like, and this wasn't even like, I wasn't really trying to make any point here. It's just interesting and funny. But that, AEW Dynamite did emanate from the location of Total Nonstop Action #1, the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama, 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Just as a little nod to the TNA, AEW running all these different big buildings, whatever, And then they have just responded to that with, boy, they are really digging in the archives for a W, aren't they? First of all, I was responding to literally the things that you said about them running buildings early on. First, TNA wasn't backed by a major TV network, and it was their first episode, ... on pay-per-view.
Because they couldn't get television. It wasn't because they didn't want television.
And then as soon as they got TV, they fucking abandoned their weekly pay-per-view model.
Nearly instantly. Took 3 months.
AEW had a TV network, 230 episodes under their belt, and Okada yet only drew 2,100 more people than TNA's premiere. Fuck irony. That's pathetic.
Good job, buddy.
It's like, okay. Again, you're really reaching for a lot of intent in my post here when I was just like, haha, building.
Also, like, part of the reason I wanted to do this show is because people do not understand TNA history. Because, like, there are interesting comparisons you can draw between the launch of AEW and the launch of TNA. Because, like, AEW spent a lot more money a lot faster and probably have lost a lot more money a lot faster than TNA ultimately did. Because TNA had a relatively small financial backing at the start, and Tony Khan is a fucking billionaire. But also, like, the talent situation completely different in 2002 versus when Tony Khan started AEW in 2019. So, like, it's apples to oranges. The people who were available to TNA in 2002 compared to the people who were available to AEW in 2019. And then also, as you mentioned, television situation, like, Tony Khan is a very rich billionaire who owns, like, football clubs and American football clubs. So he has ins with the likes of maybe a TBS or a TNT and with Warner Bros. Discovery that got him those opportunities. But, like, you can make interesting comparisons between the two they're like, AEW had advantages that TNA didn't have, but also everything this person is saying is untrue.
Yeah. Like even more so, it's cherry picking through 20 years of history to make very specific points. And then, like, the complete, like, erasure, or, like, what are we doing? We're just pretending that Vince Russo was a great wrestling mind now?
I think if you had Vince Russo book a 2024 WWE style wrestling product, people would fucking love it.
Yeah, but it wasn't successful, ever.
No, it would be bad still, but I think people are so broken by bad wrestling that they simply accept the bad wrestling now.
They embrace it. They make it their whole personality.
It used to be like a relatively small subsect of TNA fans that were laughed at, the TNA Mecca people. And now everybody is just TNA Mecca. Well, not everybody. It's also a problem that we have with the internet. Whereas, like, I am just as guilty because I quote tweeted that same tweet you just read out earlier from this dope. So, like, some of us we're all guilty of it, that, like, we engage with wrestling on terms with like the dumbest people imaginable. Because like there was a couple instances in the last few weeks, I'm like, guys, why are you talking about these things? Like there are people who did like articles and think pieces about the Maxine Dupree being booed thing. I'm like, that was a talking point from Diva Stan Twitter. Like, what are you doing? Why are you earnestly engaging with the talking point from Diva Stan Twitter? Why are you, like, lowering yourself to engage on the terms of Diva Stan Twitter? Like, you're just stupid. It's the same, like, after the Sting match, where there was, a kind of people who are acting in bad faith, pearl clutching about the Darby Allin bump, and it's like, no amount of you saying they're wrong is going to stop them from doing this next time. They're doing it for engagement, they're doing it for attention, and you are giving it to them. You are playing your role in giving them engagement and giving them attention. And like, I get why people do it, because it's really easy numbers. It's really easy numbers on Twitter to go, no, actually that move was sick. And people will be like, hell yeah, and then you'll have your side and they'll have their side, and everyone is like feeding into the same toxic feedback loop, and then the same people will turn around and say, oh, it's toxic. It's like, no, you're contributing to it. You're like part of the cycle. You can't say it's bad when you're the part of the people feeding it. And like, I'm not sitting on my high horse saying I don't do this, but it frustrates me that we keep doing this. Like we keep seeing through it. We keep seeing like what this is and how it's all a grift. Nothing matters. No one is earnest. No one is sincere, but we can't stop ourselves from engaging with it no matter how hard we try.
I got added by someone right now, and I'm itching. I'm itching to respond.
Fucking raging at this complete stranger.
Because this is so stupid. The response is so stupid, Garrett. I have to respond to it and let them know how stupid they are. Otherwise, they won't know.
It's and like for stuff like wrestling, like it's wrestling, it's low stakes, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But like, this is the same way we engage with stuff that's serious now too. Like this is like this all of politics has become this same thing with people just shouting at each other and fulfilling a role, and it's all become noise. And like that, it's much more damaging over there because that matters as opposed to this stuff which doesn't.
But I just got told that I need to know my history. So
well, tell them there's a really good TNA history podcast they can listen to. We've done 46 episodes. We've done hundreds of hours of discussing this stuff.
The irony of posting an NWA-TNA pay-per-view and not TNA TV. The first of NWA weekly pay-per-view that ran for 111 weeks before NWA was dropped, and they became their own promotion in 2004. Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. Incorrect.
Also, the show did 500 paid.
I think it was a little bit higher, but...
If you're gonna troll, at least know your history. What do you think my point was?
Your point was just that they ran the same building.
Yeah, this guy seems to... I was like, what is the... First of all, became their own promotion is incorrect. But, like, what... I'm not talking about TV or pay-per-view. I'm literally talking about they ran the same building, and that's funny considering you said they didn't run big buildings.
Yeah.
That was simply the only thing I said, and now it's like, whatever. It's very funny. I'm sorry, at Big Daddy Beef 69. You have owned me. I will die, I guess.
I'm afraid Big Daddy Beef will now be replacing you on the show. He is the preeminent expert in TNA history.
But
are you replying to Big Daddy Beef?
I'm using it as a podcast plug.
You know what? Fair enough.
There we go.
You done tweeting?
No, never. I will never log off.
I got the notification for you, so I know you're done.
I am here forever.
Enough about Twitter. That brings us to March 2006, the month that was Destination X 2006. One of my favorite TV months in company history so far.
In that it was not painful, and it was pretty fun.
There's no good like matches on TV. I think there's one match that got to 3 stars.
We've given up on that, right? That dream.
Yeah, and like, listen, it's an hour TV show and they have to fit everything in. There's not going to be time for good matches. Though I say that, there still won't be time for good matches when it gets to 2 hours. Sorry. But...
Yeah, this is not a good match promotion on TV.
There's just stuff happening in all these episodes. There's lots of stuff happening, and it just feels exciting.
It feels the most, like, fundamentally TNA that it has ever felt.
Yeah, I finished watching, like, the first episode. I was like, oh, wait, there's stuff happening here. There's angles.
Things occurred.
It wasn't just, like, match after match and, like, just promo going nowhere. There was, like, week-to-week stuff. There was the whole Jarrett story going over the entire month. Like, Monday, like, because they only really built 3 pay-per-view matches, if you you look at the card, there's some stuff that has some smaller build, like Hoyt against Bentley, and the Naturals and Team Canada both technically have some TV build, but not meaningfully. So the top 3 matches are the only matches they really build toward, but they built those matches deeply as opposed to building to everything a little bit.
Yeah, and then which made those matches feel really big and important. Maybe not important, but big.
And then only one of them was good.
Well, you know, Bob Armstrong kind of killed it.
Oh, we'll be getting to Bob. You have to wait all the way to the end of the show because it will stay in its traditional show-ending spot. But Bob Armstrong has made Trio K family drama good. It's amazing.
With some, like, added bonus points to Conan as well.
But we will start with the news. After weeks of tough negotiations and some hurt feelings, TNA signed Samoa Joe to a long-term contract estimated at between 3 and 5 years. Dave later clarifies it's 3. The long-term deal could lead to a much bigger push for Joe. His push has been held back in part because he wasn't locked in long-term. There are people in the company who strongly believe he is the single wrestler worth building around. I do like the idea that he wasn't being pushed, even though he's now in month, 8 in the company and still hasn't been beaten.
And is just like doing everything that you would do for someone who is pushed at this level. Like, he's not winning the world title, but short of that, he's getting a very good push.
Yeah, like short of Christian, he is the second hardest pushed act on the show.
Yeah.
Word is Joe got his pay doubled in his recent contract extension, but it's still well below the key wrestlers who have WWE TV exposure. I wonder, like, how much Joe is getting compared to, like, a Kip James. It would be still galling if you're Samoa Joe and Kip James is being paid more than you at this point.
And in 2024.
I wonder who does make more money between Billy Gunn and Samoa Joe. It might still be Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
Is it still Billy Gunn?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have more Twitter.
Oh, go on.
Involving the puppet.
What puppet?
The wrestling puppet who loves Jim Cornette.
The Psycho Dwarf?
No.
Oh.
They said, I still can't believe they decided weekly pay-per-views were a good idea. Thank goodness for early 2000s black boxes. To which the death of AW responded, it worked at the time.
2 things are wrong about that. They did not decide they were a good idea. It was their only option. And second, it did not work at the time. These are the things. Like, if you go back and listen to our early episodes, we did talk about how, like, it was a bad idea, but it was their only idea. They did not have another option. They couldn't get TV.
It worked at the time. They could operate better with the data they amassed. Okay, so their point here is that they weren't forced onto pay-per-view. They decided to do it to build up data to see if launching the promotion was smart.
It wasn't. They went broke by the start of August.
And then they said AEW did one pay-per-view and said, we can do this shit all the time everywhere. I always said that AEW should have tested the waters with like 2 more pay-per-views to see what the level of interest was. These people are delusional.
They are. They're not real. They should not be listened to. They do not deserve attention. They do not deserve oxygen.
Like, genuinely delusional people to think like that. Just gauge what the level of interest was as if this isn't like a successful promotion that is going to get a bunch of money from the TV deal. And also, it doesn't need to be successful. That's the age-old thing with this promotion, is it can just be bad and die, and it will still survive because money. Like, it doesn't need to be successful, but it is, despite that.
It is at its core, like we talked about this, I think, a while ago, that like people use the term vanity promotion as like a derogatory thing, and I'm like, fuck no, it's a vanity promotion. Who cares? That's cool. The billionaire started his wrestling like the money he's paying for Okada, he's not getting that back. It's cool to have Okada.
Yeah.
Joe was given all kinds of advice during his renegotiations, and the main theme stressed to him was how much better off he'd be in TNA than WWE because of WWE's track record of going overboard in knocking down anyone who was signed who has a big rep from the indie scene or an internet following. There's not a single case of a wrestler in recent years with a great indie rep getting a push without being torn down and rebuilt from scratch, which is what CM Punk is currently going through. It's funny to go back and watch like the original NXT where the same thing happened to Bryan Danielson. It's like this guy with the internet credibility. Ugh.
Sorry, I'm addicted. Help me. Take me away from this, Garrett.
Did you not hear my like 4-minute rant earlier about how feeding this loop makes you part of the problem? Did you not hear me do that? Did you not take anything from my words?
You see, the problem is, it's still addicting.
You need to tell people they're wrong. Dave mentions that Joe signed the kind of new contract that TNA wants people signed to.
Outside the room.
That's a good move. Where he signed a deal that will basically guarantee weekly money, but then TNA will be booking him out on the indies. So it's basically the right version of the deal they've been trying to do, where they control people's indie bookings, but at least now they're paying people enough that they control people's indie bookings. They're increasingly getting to that point.
God, that sucks. They should not do that.
Yeah. You might have been worried about Joe leaving. You know, you might have been sitting here in 06 being like, oh, he's going to go any minute now. But he'll be around just a little while longer.
Yeah, I think Joe will be around for a minute.
Only 9 more years. Kevin Day, who replaced Frank Dickerson as CEO of TNA Wrestling a few weeks ago, has instilled a new attitude within the ranks of the company. Day, who is in his early 30s, was promoted from within Panda Energy to get the financial end of TNA running efficiently. He has made it clear that there is no room for any deadweight among management, creative, or talent. What the fuck is Jeff Jarrett still doing there?
Waka waka.
He is a bottom line kind of guy, says one TNA employee, who has been impressed with Day's energy and resolve. The feeling is that Day will do whatever is necessary to make TNA as financially solvent as possible, ridding TNA of any wasted expenditures. One source notes that if WCW had Day in the late 90s overseeing the company's expenses, they'd still be in business. Guarantee they fucking wouldn't.
That's insane. That's an insane statement.
The problem was just like they just didn't have a guy overseeing spending, which they didn't, but that's not what caused them to die. It doesn't mean TNA is operating on the cheap, but it does mean nobody can expect a guaranteed job due to tenure or even sacrifices made 3 years ago in the early stages of the company's operation. His predecessor, Frank Dickerson, was more laid back. In his late 50s, Dickerson was a father figure, interested in getting to know everybody as people. He served a valuable role in getting contracts organized last year. Day entered his job with almost zero knowledge of pro wrestling, but a strong track record within Panda as a bottom line type of guy who can cut waste, but recognize where money needs to be spent. The structure of the company and who is responsible for what is being worked out as the company continues to grow from a father-son operation to a significant division of a large corporation. So this is basically just taking TNA further into the house of Panda Energy. It's not something we've seen recently.
It seems to be that with this company, there seems to be a point where the company that owns the company will eventually want to be more involved, whether that be in a creative aspect or just a, hey, let's sort out the finances so that everything's in line here.
And I think that's largely true of any corporately owned wrestling company.
Yeah.
Where like WCW increasingly saw like Time Warner get involved. WWE, I think, will increasingly see Endeavor get involved in their day-to-day operations. Like, it's just the way of the beast. Sinclair and Ring of Honor, same thing. Like, Sinclair increasingly getting involved in Ring of Honor operations. It's like, when you have that corporate owner, eventually that corporate owner is going to be like, fuck you wrestling people, we know what we're doing better than you do.
I'm sorry, I seem to have converted Big Daddy Beef 69.
To a patron or a listener?
To a listener, but also to someone who is not angry at me.
Drop a Patreon.
Yes!
Again, to give us
I have proven the thesis wrong! Big Daddy Beef 69 is now on my side!
Did you not just say you've thrown your phone out of the room?
Yeah, I opened up the tab.
You cannot help yourself, sir. Just a sneaky little tab open. Just a little peek. Just a little peek at the mentions. I have to see.
I got an itch. I got an itch.
Oh, Kevin Day is getting heat that anyone in that position would get. Dickerson, as Dave goes through, that Dickerson was like a wrestling guy and had good and bad points, but people liked him. But Day is not as close with talent. Dickerson, who ended up getting into TNA so much that when he was given word he was being transitioned out, he talked about getting backers and trying to buy the company.
Wait a minute.
It's insane how this always happens.
Okay, composing oneself here.
Yep.
Is this just like what happens with every company eventually?
Yeah, apparently. Because again, even if you just want to get out of perhaps current TNA and go to like WCW, it was the same thing with Bischoff. Like Bischoff trying to buy the company when he realized his time was running out, you know?
Yeah.
Or like Jeff Jarrett tried to do the same thing with TNA, you know, when he was being ousted by Toby Keith, who passed away, I think, before we did the last episode of the podcast in between. Like, Toby Keith was nearly TNA owner in, was it like 2013 or whatever, Jeff left. Like, and Jeff was like, oh, I want to buy it from Dixie with Toby Keith. So like, there is like a pretty relentless history. Like, Billy fucking Corgan did the same thing.
He did have the ability to talk to wrestlers asking for raises, turn them down, and still have the wrestlers like him and sympathize with his position.
People must have loved Frank Dickerson.
People love Frank Dickerson. He tried to get more funding for the company, but was cut after he didn't turn a profit by the company that owns them, who put their own guy in charge.
To keep costs in line, because I can't.
It's interesting. It's just an interesting observation.
Time will tell the reactions today, since the same people will be asking for the same things. Reports that Day has been told to cut spending appear to be exaggerated, if not outright incorrect. There have been no orders from the top regarding having to get rid of any talent. The idea that talent that isn't pulling their end can be gone is actually the booking committee not wanting guys coasting right now.
Makes sense.
Which is the reason they're bringing in every former WCW wrestler they can find. Not that I have an objection to like trying to get Goldberg or actually bringing in Scott Steiner, but like you can't be like, oh, we don't want guys coasting who can't carry their weight, and also hire every WCW alumni we can get our hands on.
Like, it's funny, we talked about it when AEW started about the whole idea that just because someone was in WWE, it doesn't mean you shouldn't sign them. Because like there is like a similar statement that could be made that it's like, especially in 2006, a lot of like actual stars are people that have been in one company now for a few years because WCW's been gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, I see the merit on being like, we should go for some guys, but it's like, there is like, I think part of it is we look back on it with hindsight 2020, we look back on it and we see like, these guys suck, why are we doing this with like, and then in the moment, you know, these people could have thought they had potential or could have filled out a role, which doesn't inherently make them like a bad pickup. Like, it's easy for us to look at bringing in a Shannon Moore and being like, this is stupid and dumb. But like, this is a guy that, you know, might have been able to, like, there is an alternate reality where this guy like hits, you know, and does well for the company, I guess. But I think you can always go back to how they're used over everything. Like, him and the AJ feud isn't, that's what TNA seemed to always make their problems, is they would bring like guys in and then at the detriment of their existing talent.
Yeah, and like Steve Macklin, I think, is like almost the best case, maybe in TNA history, of a guy that if you had polled 100 wrestling fans before he was signed and asked, should they sign the guy from the Forgotten Sons, I think a vast majority of people would have said, why on earth would you do that?
Yeah.
And then they did that, and he fucking rocks, you know? So, like, I'm a firm believer in TNA as the land of second chances. Shannon Moore maybe a tad less so, because I see you replying to tweets. I get the notifications because you tagged the podcast Twitter. Stither.
No, it's okay. We've come together. It's unifying now. It's actually a beautiful message about what we were talking about.
But Shannon Moore is like a known entity, I think, in 2006. So he isn't the guy I would have personally taken a punt on. But you are right that there is nuance there. It's not just a hard yes or no. It's a balance.
And especially like looking at it from a 2006 perspective, where we haven't quite gone to the like point of what will become the LOL TNA Hogan era, bringing in everyone, like, you know what I mean? Like, we certainly have blinders of being people who have lived through the absolute worst of these examples.
You could argue we're currently in the ramp up in like March 2006, because like by 2007, when you get like the Bashams and Test and Rikishi and all these people showing up where they do seem desperate for literally any WWE guy they can get their hands on, you're like, but so like you can actually look at like this month where they do bring in Steiner. They did recently add Sting and 3D and Rhino and Shannon Moore and Christian. Like they are, and like most of those guys I named, I think are one way or another worth bringing in some capacity. But you are seeing like the ramp up of like, we need to sign guys with names as opposed to we need to trust the people we have.
Yeah, but you know, again, we're looking at it with like, we know what's going to happen instead of like, I guess there's no place for optimism from us doing a historical podcast.
Yeah, that is the problem. We can't sit here and be like, I hope they don't go too far on this thing. We know they do. Like we can't be like, oh god, I hope Shannon Moore isn't a sign of things to come.
But also it is interesting to be like, try and get into the mindset of the company at the time too.
And like there does seem to be pressure from Spike to get more stars. And there is like I didn't include much rating stuff this month because rating stuff bores me to tears. But like ratings have stagnated on Spike, and if not like went a little bit down. down. They're like doing like 0.7 to 800,000 people a week at the moment, which is a little below where they were at the start. So I think there is some hand wringing about that, and like what can we do to start getting that number to continue to grow. And like we'll talk about their primetime spot was taken away. We'll talk about that in a minute. So like there is some like what can we do to get this thing really cooking at the moment, and their answer to that is what it always is, the short-term fix of what can we get a Bill Goldberg. It's not how can we make people care even more about AJ Styles. It's like the easiest thing is just to get a Bill Goldberg, because that's a short-term fix and it will work, as opposed to you have to actually put time and effort and creative vision into making AJ more popular.
But I was told that they knew how to build stars around their
Don't you go back to tweets.
Bookers and RVDs.
Jeff Jarrett is not scheduled to be in the World Heavyweight title picture for the next few pay-per-views, at least. As TNA expands, Jarrett has realized his need to step back from trying to wear so many hats, while he still has tremendous influence on the creative direction and holds a VP title and is co-owner of the company. He is not as dead set on being the sole wrestler the company is built around at this point, perhaps because he senses Dixie Carter and Kevin Day don't think that's the best plan. We still have like 6 months of the company still kind of being built around Jarrett until it's finally not. But we do seem to be getting to the point where even Jarrett's like, I can't be the top star over Christian and Sting.
It's nice that it really took like him to not be I think be exposed is a really mean way of saying it, but like having people go in and be in his position and do it better, for him to be like, oh, I am not him. But like it has eventually dawned on him.
And like he could like make the argument that like he had more of the tools to be a world champion than AJ. I don't agree with that assessment, but like I can understand how he can make that case and make it convincingly to somebody.
Yeah. And again, I always thought that like AJ was more of a like longer term or medium term project. So like I never minded like Jeff taking his role early on when there was nothing else. But
yeah, Raven is probably the more egregious example. He can no longer make that argument with like Christian and Sting. He just can't.
It was okay for Jarrett to be there in the analytics period of 111 weeks.
Dixie Carter continues to be very active within TNA, even though she is heavily pregnant at the moment, once again with her second child. I think she's like 7 or 8 months pregnant at this point. Working with business affiliates, promoting the company, and overseeing the entire operation. She is spending less time getting to know individual wrestlers since she found herself in a position common to new executives in wrestling companies over the years, where wrestlers tried to befriend her and get her to see things their way. People tried to have it. She's realized wrestlers entirely tried to have transactional relationships with management.
She realizes that workers be working.
She is still visible and friendly, but now has enough of a foundation to her wrestling knowledge that she doesn't answer every call from every wrestler anymore as she once did. Speaking of foundations to her wrestling knowledge, Vince Russo was being talked about as a booking replacement for Jarrett just before the rating spike for Sting ended that talk. I don't understand this. Like you can say that like ratings have not like continued to grow since they started on Spike, but where they are is like really healthy. Like it's really good. You should be really happy with where those ratings are at the moment compared to where you were a year ago. Like where you were when Russo finished compared to where they are now is like night and day. It's crazy. And they're still like, what if we went back to Vince Russo?
There is truly no explanation for why this company continued to put so much stock in this man forever.
Forever as well. Like all the way through to fucking 2014 we have to do this dance, Liam.
I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
He must be like the best politician of all time.
He doesn't like come across as particularly likable.
But it's the only explanation, right? He's got to be really good at manipulating like management types.
Yeah, like anyone that's like a regular person can see through it, but anyone who's like, I am money man, is just like, this guy's awesome. He's so real and different.
I'm sure he's like real personable, and I know like there were stories that he used to literally sit next to Dixie and explain the stories to her as they happened. But he's got to be really good at that. It's the only way it makes sense that you can be like, what if we went back to him? Because they do. That's the problem. They do by September. We're in March, so this is not like a fleeting idea that went away. It's like this is one that festered and grew over time because they go back to Vinny Roo by September. November. So, like, it's so frustrating to see them now, where, like, they started on Spike and they have all this momentum, and they signed Sting and they signed Christian, and they're going to sign Kurt Angle, and they're still like, what if we had Vinny Roo?
Yeah, and then he comes in and he makes it way better.
It would be funnier, at least.
I don't know. I just don't know. He must be really good at working, like, people in the business, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can understand why, like, a Dixie would fall for this, right? But, like, you would expect a fellow carny like a Jeff Jarrett to be like, I can see through you.
Well, like, he's always been Jeff's buddy, so there's, like, a weird conflict there where they're friends. So maybe that blinds them. But, like a Sting. Surely a Sting is like, I experienced WCW. No. You're not if you're doing that, you're not doing with me.
I don't know. It's just interesting that, like, no one can see through this guy as being a gigantic fraud.
And, like, Sting is a level of guy who could say no, because if, like, you go to Dixie Carter and you're like, you can have Russo or you can have Sting, Dixie is going to choose Sting.
Yeah.
But clearly he's too nice a guy. He's not enough of a politician to do that.
Ah, damn it, Steve. The one thing that lets you see through everything is the one thing that stops you from preventing it.
Probably connected about Jesus as well.
Ah, they do love Jesus.
Bill Banks left the creative team about 2 months ago. It started rumors of Russo, a long-time Banks associate, angling to get back in. Russo has said publicly that he has no interest in ever coming back to TNA. But apparently those who know him well believe differently, and his name comes up internally from a few different people close with him. I guess, like, there might also be the thing that, like, a BG James, I don't know is BG close to Russo, but, like, a guy who's not being pushed particularly strongly might be like, maybe we can get the guy who's my buddy in, so I might get to be pushed because I'm not being pushed. So there might be some of that going on too.
It just seems like, I don't know, where it feels like we're in a stretch now where it's like, anyone who is pushed is on all these shows, is doing something. Unless it's like coming from the mentality that, like, everyone that was in WCW or WWE thinks they should be world champion.
Which I wouldn't be surprised that BG James does believe that.
But it's like, it just seems ridiculous. I don't know. It feels like they all came down to this smaller promotion and all think they should be the top guy in this smaller promotion, even though this promotion has legitimate stars now.
Yeah. Terry Taylor has been promoted to Talent Relations Director, basically the same position John Laurinaitis holds in WWE, and Jim Ross and JJ Dillon previously held in WWE. Taylor has worked underneath Ross in the Talent Relations Department at WF in the late 90s and had several management and creative positions in WCW under Eric Bischoff, so he has plenty of experience in the role. There is some conflict apparently about whether or not this is an official title or he just has been given more talent relations responsibilities, but either way he has been given more talent relations responsibilities.
I mean, okay. I feel like you need someone in that role.
Wrestling's bad guy.
Yeah. It's funny, like, having the wrestling bad guy thing, like, worked for Vince. It did not work for Dixie.
No, people still saw through it for Dixie. Spike TV shifted its plans for TNA Impact in April. Rather than being on in prime time at 9 p.m. Eastern, it will now air at 11 p.m. Eastern following The Ultimate Fighter. There are two trains of thought over whether this is a good or bad change for the company. For one, it won't face the same level of competition at 11 p.m. that it would at 8 p.m. Even more advantageous for TNA is that it will directly follow the UFC Ultimate Fighter reality series with Tito Ortiz and Ken Shamrock starring as coaches, rather than a CSI lead-in, which would have been at, if it was 9 o'clock, which we talked about last week, or last episode. TNA will benefit from what is expected to be a strong lead-in audience from that show. In the previous time slot, it would not have that lead-in, but also it's less prestigious. You're not in prime time anymore. It's 11 p.m., not 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's a strong lead-in though, isn't it?
Like if you were to be given the choice, like, you've proven on Saturdays that you can actually get a decent audience at 11 p.m. So it's not like you'd be worried that that's too late for people to be watching, because, you could make an argument 11 p.m. on weekends versus weekdays may be a little bit different. But you at least have proven that you have an audience that you can get at that time. And yeah, like, Ultimate Fighter is a better lead-in. Like, it is more directly related to wrestling. Like, there is more crossover between wrestling fans and MMA fans than there probably is between wrestling fans and CSI fans.
Like, you can see someone watching The Ultimate Fighter and then TNA starts and being like, I will leave this on.
Yeah, so there is that, but then it is a little deflated because they're like, we're going to prime time. Wait a minute, we're going to Thursdays still, but not quite prime time anymore. Jarrett announced the Thursday time slot change to the staff at the Impact tapings for the second batch of tapings, I believe, for this month. He said that Spike TV did demographic research and realized that their core audience is 18 to 34 males. They really needed research to tell them that.
Analytics, baby.
The television channel that directly appealed to and marketed itself as the men channel has realized that its core audience is men.
Lads.
And that the planned lead-in CSI wasn't drawing from that audience. So the Spike were like, it would be better if it was Ultimate Fighter. So that's like the spin Jarrett did put on it. It's like the demos of being on after Ultimate Fighter are better, even if the time slot is worse. Which is, like, it might be true. That might not just be spin. That might just actually be the case. In what is actually huge financial news, and we don't have much in the way of details on it, the relationship between TNA and Morphoplex, its main sponsor, is over.
What the hell?
I did notice that they did a bunch of replays this month that would be traditionally Morphoplex moves of the night, but they were just replays of a Canadian destroyer.
It's always replays of a Canadian destroyer, to be fair. But yes, you're right. There was no branding to it.
TNA got the word from Spike this past week that Morphoplex is no longer involved, and they were the main sponsor both in regards to TV commercials, the Morphoplex move of the night, and other deals. No ads appeared on the February 18th show. Larry Zbyszko, who was sponsored when he tried Seniors Golf by Morphoplex and did the early TV commercials, which are insane, by the way. If you've ever seen the Larry Zbyszko, there's a Larry Zbyszko Morphoplex commercial where he's standing in a graveyard and he's like, steroids, they'll get you here. Take Morphoplex instead. It's actually insane.
That's awesome for an 80s wrestler to say.
Yeah, he's also distanced himself from Morphoplex, so no more Larry Zbyszko Morphoplex commercials.
I'm into it.
Because, like, I know the number was thrown around, I think in the Observer at one point, that they were paying like $500,000 to get that sponsorship spot. So, that's a big loss. Frank Dickerson didn't lose the Morphoplex deal. Kevin Day did. I knew he said Charlie Day, and I was like, no, he doesn't run TNA. It might be a better company if he did.
If Twitter was around when Frank Dickerson left, do you think everyone posted the emojis of the hourglass?
TNA management used Austin Aries and Roderick Strong as an example for being on time to shows. They worked their scheduled match at the Against All Odds pay-per-view and wrestled at the Impact tapings Tuesday night. However, they have been told they will be off TV for the next month or 2 months. The penalty time could be shortened or extended depending on how TNA proceeds with the punishment. Aries and Strong arrived at the TNA pay-per-view 4 hours late. They drove 6 hours Saturday night to fly out of an airport that wasn't blanketed by a severe snowstorm on the East Coast. Prior to the Ring of Honor show in Long Island on Saturday, TNA, this is before Against All Odds, just for clarity, TNA management called Aries and Strong, we talked about this last month, instructing them to fly to Orlando to ensure they arrived in time for the pay-per-view. Aries made the decision to stay in Ring of Honor. They arrived in time and worked their scheduled match against the Naturals. Before the match, Aries was informed they would be punished. Aries says they were justified in the actions they took, and Aries was justified, and I was justified in what I said. Aries says it was a catch-22 for Aries and Strong, who felt an obligation to fulfill the ROH commitment, but wanted to ensure they worked in Orlando. Which it turns out they hit both of them, so you should be a little bit no harm, no foul, right?
I mean, yeah, me as a person, yes, I understand that you did both, like, slap on the wrist, but it should be fine. I can also see the company's point of view as like, no, we told you to be here and you weren't here.
Yeah, and like obviously there's I think increasingly conflict at the moment between TNA and Ring of Honor, where they were on good terms in like the middle of 2005, and now more of these problems are arising where the guys they share across both rosters, especially when they run the same weekends, are either coming into one or the other show injured, they're missing shows because they get hurt in the other shows. They're like, Joe I think has an issue coming out of both of his last pay-per-view matches due to injuries suffered in indie dates. And then obviously there is this incident where they told all the talent to fly in early, and a bunch of people like Dave Hebner, who was running a show in Virginia with a bunch of TNA talent, just flat out cancelled his show. He's just like, no, all right, they can't be here, cancel the show. But Aries and Strong, who like completely understandably feel a loyalty to Ring of Honor, they're Ring of Honor guys. Aries is a former Ring of Honor world champion at this point, so like it's completely understandable that he's like, I don't want to fuck over Ring of Honor like that. But you are right that then it is completely understandable for TNA to be like, you are our priority contractually. I believe it does say in the contract that he can.
That's the thing too. It's like, this is like you signed the contract sort of thing as well.
Yeah, you agreed that we are your priority and can pull you from dates if need be, and we wanted to do that and you refused to do it, so go home. But yeah, it's a shame that like these two, like I think the X Division needed two guys like this. Not that there's anything wrong with the Lethals and the Shelleys and the PDs of the world, but like the Aries and the Strongs really help complement that and round that out.
Well, yeah, it's it's adding more meat to the bones.
And they are guys that, as you look to move Styles and Daniels into the tag division and move Joe into the heavyweight division, they are guys that then slot up to where Sabin and Lethal and Shelley are now, as Sabin, Lethal, and Shelley move up to where Styles, Daniels, Joe are. You know, you've kind of taken out that level below the mid card of the X division, so now that you just leave the X division with less depth without them.
Yeah, but it's like it's one of those ones that you can understand their perspective on, I guess.
There's a lot more like back and forth where like Aries is also injured, like he got hurt in working in the Naturals match. He tweaked his knee, so he's also out injured for a while. But he also like released a statement that had some inaccuracies about like the timeline, and then people got mad about that. It's like, oh, he said they informed him day of, whereas actually they informed him night before about the fact that he'd have to not do the show, and like there's messiness there too that complicates it even more. But for the most part, I understand the actions of all individuals involved.
Yeah, the thing that I find interesting about it, or at least is a different note too, is like you have to remember that this is a company that is incredibly insecure about Ring of Honor and how much praise it gets online, and like I think that's always going to be part of it too, is like they do kind of resent this promotion a little bit too.
I think you can also just take the about Ring of Honor out of it. Like, we talked all about what they were doing at Wrestling Society X last, which is the exact same, like, deep insecurity that they're, like, terrified of everything around them and, like, kind of jealous of everything around them, and they're super isolationist even when they're not. There is, like, just an insecurity that goes to the bone of the company during this era, isn't there?
Yeah, I think they see all the parts that they have, and they want to be perceived as living up to that, but there's points in which they just aren't. And yeah, but it doesn't help that they started at pretty similar time span to ROH2, and they're like, we are bigger than this promotion. Why does this promotion get so much affection and high praise from pundits and such? So I think there's definitely, I see where it could come from, I guess. Even if I think a lot of it is self-inflicted.
TNA announced a licensing agreement with Hermie Sadler-owned UWF promotion to run TNA-branded house shows in Virginia.
Oh, fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off.
A lot of these shows made tape if you'd like to watch them.
First of all, my man took the UWF name?
Hell yeah, Hermie Sadler. The first show takes place March 31st at the Grand Center in Danville. The second show, April 1st in Martinsville. Former 6 Points of Impact contributor Jeff Hammond will attend the April 1st show.
He owns it with the Hebners?
Yeah.
This is not my UWF.
We have a Dixie quote.
This is not Terry Gordy. This is not Dr. Death. What the fuck did Dixie say? We feel the time is right to take our production to the fans that have been so supportive of us as we have grown into a primetime slot on television.
Dixie Carter said in a press release last week. Yeah, that primetime spot part didn't last.
We have had a great relationship with Hermie and his family for a long time, and we know that the UWF-TNA partnership will continue to grow our fan base in the Mid-Atlantic/Southeast.
Sadler, a longtime supporter of TNA wrestling, says the momentum TNA currently has, along with the growth of the UWF, made it the perfect time to join the forces.
I hate that he calls it the UWF. It really annoys me.
Do you have a Hermie Sadler impression in you?
Not one that wouldn't just be demeaning.
Hermie Sadler said, I was on the very first TNA pay-per-view, so not unlike your Dixie, by the way, which is thoroughly representative and good first. So I know how far they have come in a short period of time, he said in a press release.
I love Dixie, that's the different.
Yeah. We have featured mostly TNA talent on our shows this year, and the response has been great. Fans are ready for an alternative. We are proud to partner with TNA to bring the TNA experience, including the six-sided ring, to fans across Virginia and North Carolina. Like, they are beginning to dip their toe in house shows. We're talking about the one they're running in Detroit as well, which is actually in cooperation with the ICP. Of course it is. So it's an easy way, I think, to start dipping your toe in the house show market without having to commit too many resources. So you can be like, oh, we'll partner with the ICP for the Detroit show. We'll do these Hermie Sadler things in Virginia and North Carolina.
We'll partner with the ICP is an insane statement.
Don't you love partnering with the ICP?
No.
Yeah, it seems a pretty low stakes way to get your toe in the market of house shows without having to actually spend money.
Right.
In a message on his website, UltimateWarrior.com. The Ultimate Warrior wrote that he'd like to wrestle Bill Goldberg in TNA.
I'd probably do it.
I've always been thinking in the history of our podcast, we haven't talked about the Ultimate Warrior enough.
We haven't talked about UltimateWarrior.com ever. And that seems like just a waste of potential, you know?
Please check where UltimateWarrior.com goes for me while I read this for Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, I will risk the health and safety of my computer for it.
Thank you. Warrior posted, it would be very interesting. What would be more interesting is if TNA execs had the creativity, integrity, and balls to entertain it seriously. Frankly, what they should do, if they want to be competitive, there's that nasty blood, sweat, and tears word again, is sell some of those construction materials Daddy Jarrett has laying around and put up the financing to bring in Goldberg and Ultimate Warrior and let us try to beat the intensity out of one another. Now there's an idea, an attention-getting one, and a money-making one. I mean, instead of always using warrior as the adjective to fallaciously describe all those who aren't, bring a real and ultimate one in. Let the hardcore natural intensity rip. Let both of us take our mischaracterized heads halfway out of our asses, just enough for us to be businessmen capable of discussing the serious potential, yet not enough to diffuse a competitive grudge, and let the serious and creative thinkers at TNA, those without an agenda or envy problem, work out a program. Put your silly ass fear and prejudice for my strong, bold character away, and think success. Hell, I'm all for great ideas. He said hell because that's where he is. But I hinted at it wouldn't be inexpensive. Goldberg has an agent and has to give him a cut. I'm my own and I charge even more. The biggest obstacle, and definitely the one that has us both the most hated in the industry, he's keep fucking going, is that we are strong individuals.
He's cutting a promo.
Who don't need or even necessarily want to be in the business. I don't get that impression from this fucking 16 paragraph thing you just wrote there, buddy, is that we and can get along having great lives without it. But what a way it would be for the most envied and despised to shove the final word down the throats of those nor'easterners while TNA capitalizes off the incredible heat of it all.
I'm fucking sold. Let's do it.
Where does UltimateWarrior.com go?
Let's contact Jerry Jarrett, I guess, who we still believe has stake in this company in time to sell off his real estate.
Yeah, sell the shell garage you built last month to pay for Ultimate Warrior to wrestle Bill Goldberg.
UltimateWarrior.com takes me to stephaniewilton.wixsite.com/ultimatewarrior, and it just seems like an Ultimate Warrior website.
Oh, I'm not sure why you'd have a fan page for that, man, but sure.
I mean, it also has the Total Warriors podcast. I bet that one's been updated recently. Oh, it is. It's Dana Warrior. Oh my god, Dana Warrior and Dana Brooks. The Danas collide.
It's very elegant.
Yeah, this podcast seems to have 6 episodes and then never dropped another one.
We would never.
No, we say on our 500. There seems to be Warrior Weapons of Wisdom, which is art. There's a vault, which has it's a very nice website.
Admiring the design.
I can't, there's just a page for, people who have, uploaded photos of them dressed up as Warrior. There's a store, which takes you to his WWE shop, his shop, and as well to signed items. There's a blog, there's a YouTube link. Hasn't been updated since 2019, but you know what? It's a solid website.
You gotta still make that money off a Warrior.
Yeah, gotta drag that fucking corpse around.
That is enough about Warrior, though. Wild that he never actually showed up in TNA. You would surely thought they would have been desperate enough at some point.
I think he probably just always wanted, real money, and they didn't always have real money to give.
Or they couldn't, even delude themselves into thinking he's worth the money he's asking for.
No. He probably would have been worth bringing in if you could get him for, reasonable pricing. And I gotta admit, he sold me with him and Goldberg beating the piss out of each other for real.
I know that they did come back to the thought of doing something with him and Sting again, either against each other or as a team. But yeah, he would have wanted an insane amount of money. So
he's
nope.
An insane person.
Kevin Nash is scheduled to return in time for TNA's move to primetime. One major former pay-per-view main event wrestler called TNA to express interest in working for the company, but TNA made it clear that they want any major names who come in to not just be looking for a payday, but also be willing to help give a boost to TNA's lesser established wrestlers who are in it for the long haul. That's fucking bullshit.
Who is taking these calls? This is not true.
Whoever fed that to PW Torch, full of shit.
But also, that's exactly what they should be doing, so maybe that mindset should be permeated a bit more.
It would be like classic TNA that everyone believes that, but nobody actually does it.
Yeah.
There are now feasible scenarios out there for the 5 biggest names of the Monday Night Wars era not working for WWE right now, other than Hulk Hogan to be brought in to either wrestle or make appearances. But at this point, most scenarios are long shots. 4 of the big free agent names have all expressed disgust with WWE's approach to recent situations, including the death of Eddie Guerrero and the treatment of Jim Ross, and have cited as one of the major reasons they'd potentially be interested in tilting the scale toward TNA as much as possible to create a more level playing field. It's just generous altruism, Liam.
You're all fake. You're all fake. None of you believe any of this. You're just saying it.
At least 2 of those top names are watching TNA regularly and like what they see and seem to be scouting where they might fit. Because this is the month where there's a lot of Goldberg notes like that I didn't really include, but most because he doesn't end up showing up. So it's like there's not much point being like they're edging toward Goldberg, but like this is probably the month they seem to come closest to actually doing something with Goldberg. So much so that he is actually name dropped on the pay-per-view. But obviously it just
and the crowd seems to think that he's coming.
Yeah, because in the main event segment of Destination X, when Sting is getting beaten down, they start chanting Goldberg. So there is the assumption that something's happening with Big Bill.
Big Bill? He doesn't come until way later.
Not until 2021.
Then we can give TNA their flowers for helping his career.
Yeah, he goes into that Macklin territory where, again, if you would ask 100 wrestling fans, should Big Cass get a second shot in TNA, the vast majority of them would have said no, and then they did, and he rocked, and now he's in AEW, and he still rocks.
And then AEW gets all the credit.
Same people who rolled their eyes at Big Bill main eventing pay-per-views in TNA is suddenly like, Big Bill's the best wrestler, I love him. Fucking disingenuous.
I would never.
Brock Lesnar is not negotiating with TNA, but an intermediary is communicating between the two parties about a potential agreement should Lesnar get contractually free from his WWE legal mess soon.
Are you excited?
Like this little stretch we've done here is like again what we were talking about earlier, where it's like it begins, you know? We're like, not all these people come in, but like we've done this stretch, and there's a couple more we'll talk about even before we're done with the notes for the month, where that, like, you know, Goldberg and Steiner does come in, and Lesnar and Nash is coming back, and Ultimate Warrior is angling for something, you know? It's just like it just begins, you know. This is it.
Begins again.
Apollo is gone from TNA after missing his second consecutive pay-per-view match. His profile has been removed from TNAWrestling.com. I love how that's become the shorthand for now 20 odd years about how a wrestler has gone from the company. It's like, profile gone from the roster page.
And then to the fact where it's now become part of the work.
Yeah, where it's a bit to take the person off the roster page in order to sell the story.
Yeah, which then in turn makes it no longer believable, so it's a whole mess.
It must have been much more confusing before the internet, where like if you weren't reading the sheets, there wasn't like a list of people who wrestled for like WCW. So if like Dustin Rhodes left WCW, you'd just be like, where'd Dustin Rhodes go?
Yeah.
Like obviously you'd eventually show up in the WWF and you'd be like, oh, that's where he's gone, but like there wouldn't be a signifier at all. He'd just disappear off TV. Like the wrestlers you like could just disappear, and you would have no way of finding out, like, is he gone from the thing I like?
We do live in part of the whole, like, everything is a lot more easy to see now.
Apollo is no longer going to be used, although he may not have been told that he's fired. They're just like, fuck him. He had calls trying to keep from being fired, but in his case, there is no sympathy at all for missing 2 straight pay-per-view shows. It was never an issue about jobbing, although Apollo doesn't like the job, as he didn't even know the match finished, he no-showed. So it wasn't like he's like, I'm losing, I'm not showing up. It's just regular no-showing. He didn't want to go.
It's pretty interesting that is just the thing. Like in wrestling, where people are just like, I'm just not gonna go.
Yeah, because we were about to talk, like, Sean Waltman isn't going to be used, and like he might be going to Wrestling Society X anyway. Jeff Hardy isn't going to be used anymore. Like there was talk of bringing Jeff back again for the primetime runs, but they're like, oh, I guess we can't.
It's so, like, they really just, I mean, I get it with Jeff, at least. I mean, I don't know. They're really just, they want anything and anyone. You like, they make bad decisions, but like, it's almost like, can I blame you?
If you were to, like, we don't have these stats for 2006, because this is actually the month TNA launched their YouTube channel. There's a fun fact. February, March 2006, whereas the first
I think
video, like, there was...
the YouTube channel is much better now, though.
Thank you.
And I think that anyone who is involved in that should get big raises.
The one of the first videos was actually the first video was the Ultimate X feature. There was a couple Ultimate X features this month. That was the first video in the history of TNA's YouTube channel, and the second was the Ron Killings What's Up music video.
That's kind of awesome.
Those were the first two videos on TNA's YouTube this month in 2006, when YouTube was but a wee thing.
Now look at it, creating Jake Poles and such.
But like to go back to my point, like if you were to post an AMW YouTube match in 2006 or a Jeff Hardy one, the Jeff Hardy one would do much better. Like that's just the reality of the situation, which is the reason everyone's always like Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, I suppose like there is an element of with a YouTube, right? This obviously isn't as much relevant now, but it's something relevant coming up. Is that it's for the first time it's like instant feedback on a global level of who is garnering the most attention.
Yeah, because you used to only have like minute by minute ratings, and now you have this thing that says like Jeff Hardy clip does X, AMW clip does Y, you know, Gail Kim clip does Z, Jeff Jarrett clip does
And it's
B.
not just people watching the TV.
Yeah.
It's everyone. It's interesting.
And it's the beginning of like no longer directly needing a Spike TV or a pay-per-view carrier to start distributing your content. You now have like access to direct people. You can cut out the middleman of the broadcaster.
That's an interesting part about creating, I know you hit word content in general now, is that we're in a state now where you don't need as much backing as ever. There are multiple pro wrestling companies now which are all of their way of distributing their promotion and their shows is all online through their own mediums, whether it be through a Patreon, their own OTT service, or YouTube. There's multiple companies now that are just doing that, and it's just. And that's a smaller symptom of a larger shift in how people produce content now.
Yeah, and arguably too much stuff is available now. Not just in terms of more stuff than people can watch, but like a young wrestler who's 19, it's both cool that everything they ever do makes tape, but like you deserve to stay in the shadows for a while. It was like the thing from the Maxine Dupree thing is like, that woman should not be on television. She should not be in front of people. She should be working at the smallest indies she can find that don't make tape. But the problem is there's actually very few stuff that doesn't make tape anymore. It's almost like the exception now that something doesn't make tape, so that like there's a spotlight on everybody now immediately the second you start wrestling.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Might not be healthy.
It's probably not. Well, it's the same thing as like, you know, people have grown up on the internet now, and it's like your baby brain thoughts from when you were 14 are on the internet somewhere.
It's the same. It happens every year with like the NBA draft, where like somebody gets drafted, and like it's not always like cancelable stuff. It's just like their bad review of Avatar from 2011 is just sitting there in their Twitter feed.
Yeah, like someone will get drafted into like the NFL, and they'll go back to their tweets and it'll be like 2009. I want to fuck one of the avatars. And you're like, yeah, all right, fair. Go off, King. Or like we saw it with Solo Sikoa, who like got bullied off Twitter because he had like 5,000 tweets that were like, I hate math.
Really? How did I miss that?
He had like, he literally had like 15 tweets that were all different variants of how much he hates math, and people kept retweeting him, and then he just deleted like his Twitter.
Aww.
But like, it was really, but like it wasn't like embarrassing. It was just funny that this guy was like, man, I hate math so much.
Yeah, it's just, like you just see the glimpse into when you were a normal person as opposed to being a star, which is quite charming.
I want to see if I can find some of these math tweets. They're like, it's really not like embarrassing. Yeah, here we go. It's just like fuck math, like breathing emoji, history and math. Damn shit, I hate math. Hate math! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! I hate math. Blowing out of the nose emoji. Angry emoji.
This man did not have a good time in school.
Yeah, he just has like 6 tweets that say fuck math, and people kept retweeting him. And they're all from 2013.
God, that's not long enough ago for him to hating math. That upsets me. I don't like that.
When Roman was first debuting.
He was just tweeting about how much math is fucking him over.
I want to see, how old was Solo Sikoa 13 years ago? So he was 17. Because he is 30 now. They should push that guy. Unrelated. I suppose he's involved in the biggest thing in the world for like...
But also he never wins his matches, so...
He beat John Cena.
And I don't think he's won a singles match since.
Has he had many since?
I don't know. Sean Waltman was meant to be planned for a spot in the James Gang LAX feud, but that is no longer happening because he may be signed with WSX anyway.
Oh, was he going to be the third man in the James Gang?
Well, it worked out better if he was, because fucking Bob Armstrong's the coolest.
I was going to say, well, I don't think he was going to be an LAX.
That would be cooler, though.
It would. Homicide and Shaun White, Sean Waldman, and Conan.
Yeah, that's a stable right there.
And Machete.
He's definitely going to be hanging around.
I'm a massive fan. I would hate for him to go.
Kanyon was backstage at the latest TNA TV tapings but didn't wrestle. He sent a press release stating that he was given a 2-page contract that said if he wrestled, he would...
the idea of a Kanyon press release made me really laugh then.
From the desk of Chris Kanyon.
Who better then?
He said he would allow them to market his likeness or merchandise perpetually without any payment to him. He asked them to strike that clause and they refused, so he didn't work the taping. He printed the clause in his release. You grant TNA during and after the term of the agreement a non-exclusive, unrestricted, worldwide, perpetual license to use and authorize and license others to use on terms acceptable to TNA and its sole discretion. Your name, stage name, likeness, voice, actions or movements, poses and appearances, words and slogans, props or other items associated with you and any of your biographical material in connection with the events and the recordings, and any associated publicity and promotional materials including you, which shall include without limitation television commercials, print advertisements and radio advertisements, including without limitation in connection with the manufacture, distribution, promotion, sale and other commercial exploitation in any manner of event related or non-event related merchandise without any further compensation to you. Merchandise may include without limitation computer, video or arcade games in any form and on any platform, videotapes and DVDs, posters, photos, books, articles, action figures or dolls, t-shirts, souvenirs, or any other tangible or intangible personal or intellectual property.
Yep, seems about normal.
I do think part of that is just like, if you want to show the Kanyon thing in the future, you do have to have a clause like that that says you can use Kanyon's name and likeness so you can show Chris Kanyon's match against Raven in perpetuity.
Yeah, or like, we want to put his face on the DVD.
Yeah, but it does read like, we own you forever and there's nothing you can do about it.
But I bet, like, it's the most standard fucking... Like, it's pretty standard for most contracts in entertainment, too.
Yeah, but like the without any money is probably the harshest part, because he should probably get some royalties if it's like
yeah,
this.
Yeah, there should be royalties, yeah.
Which is probably the harsher part, that there's no royalties attached to this kind of stipulation.
Yeah, they can't pay fucking royalties.
No, they can't. So, yeah, it is basically so we get, like, if we want to put the Chris Kanyon match on TNA Plus, for example, in 2023, we can because of this contract he signed back in 2006.
And they can do that anyway, though.
Well, only if they have terms like this in contracts. That's how they can do that.
But, like, for a one-off appearance, he would have had to have signed something that would have had, like, this exact thing in it anyway, right?
Yeah, you would imagine so.
So, you've already signed it, dude. You did the appearance.
Juventud Guerrera recently called up Christian, who he wasn't particularly close with in WWE, and hadn't seen or talked to since Christian left. He called up like they were best friends, and how he missed talking with them and was acting like they were running buddies, until he finally said, "Can you get me into TNA?" The funny part of the story is if he just asked, he'd have a better chance than pretending to be best friend of somebody who was at best a working acquaintance. Juventud has also been calling Antonio Pena constantly. Pena hasn't called him back because he hasn't decided whether to take him. So Juvi's trying to get back in.
And they should let him in.
I love the idea of that exchange. I was like, hey, buddy, Christian, remember the good times we had in WWE? I was in the Mexicools, remember? You were there.
I was in the Mexicools.
The World X Cup is set for the May pay-per-view and the Impacts beforehand. They are working on finalising deals this week, but Team UK looks to be Doug Williams, Nigel McGuinness, Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. That falls through, but that's a heck of a team.
That's about as good of a Brit team as you can ask for.
One that would have aged very... because the one that they had in the 2004 one was fucking diabolical.
Yeah, it was awful.
Whereas that's like the 4 big stars of this era and the 4 people who have aged best. But sadly, there is no Team UK in the World X Cup in the end, so it doesn't work out.
That's upsetting.
It's fun. Dave dropped this note without context, and like, if you know wrestling, you can work out who it is, but if you don't, you'll speculate wildly. Like, so he said, if everything works out, one of the biggest stars in the world will debut on that pay-per-view, which will build for him returning for the World X Cup. That pay-per-view being Destination X. Mm-hmm. So like, if you don't know he's talking about Mystico, you would be like, who the fuck's he talking about?
Like Brock Lesnar?
He's going to be in the World X Cup?
That's an awesome debut for him.
They're going to put Bill Goldberg on Team TNA with Jay Lethal?
Yeah, that's like... I wish that was Dave being like purposefully obtuse. Where he's like, I know people are going to be so confused.
So Dave does talk about the teams for the World X Cup at a time of press. We talked about the Team UK. The Team Japan is meant to be Liger, Black Tiger, Gedo, and Minoru Tanaka. The only substitute there is Haruki Goto goes instead of Gedo. They were trying to get a deal done with CMLL to get a CMLL team for Team Mexico. It doesn't happen in the end, but the proposed team was Mystico, Ultimo Guerrero, Rey Bucanero, and Ultimo Dragon.
Jesus Christ, this would have been so sick.
And then also Team US and Team Canada. So
there was also Nakamura being bandied about.
Yeah, Nakamura was meant to be in the 4-way at the pay-per-view in the place of Puma. We'll talk about that when we talk about the match itself. But yeah, that match, as we were talking about in the watch-along, that match was meant to be Sabin, PD, Mystico, and Shinsuke Nakamura. That was the first draft of that match.
It would have been so funny to see like Nakamura doing his little shooty things in that match. Trying to put someone in an armbar.
Him and Chris Sabin just trying to do some shit while PD does destroyers with Mystico.
God, that would have been the greatest match of all time. I'm convinced.
Have Mystico and Nakamura ever interacted? Surely they have.
WWE maybe. Yeah, he was gone by then, right?
Yeah, he was gone from WWE by the time Nakamura was there. But like Mystico did New Japan stuff as well, so surely they would have had some interaction.
Matches. Nakamura. There is one match. A 6-man tag. Damn, this match kind of crazy. Alright, Cork and Hole, 2011 Fantastica Mania. So, could have made tape. Averno, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Tetsuya Naito versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, Mystico, and Prince Devitt.
Kind of rocks, actually, doesn't it?
I need to see this. Please. I need to
God
see
bless
this.
Fantastica Mania.
Oh. It's got the little blue thing next to it. Sorry, little green thing next to it. That means it was aired.
Probably on like a Ustream that nobody has anymore.
Sorry, I'm just posting. Like, if anyone has, please send it to me. But I also kind of want to post to the person who just said that I'm a company shill and don't enjoy all other wrestling. And be like, bitch, I'm looking at an Averno, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tetsuya Naito versus Tanahashi, Mystico, and Prince Devitt match while talking on a TNA podcast.
Feelers were sent to Bruno Sammartino about doing a babyface commissioner role to feud with Larry Zbyszko.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, going back to their classic feud as well.
I love that TNA is like, we will go for everyone.
Let's get Bruno in here. And like this, obviously, it becomes something else because Jim Cornette comes in the summer as the babyface authority figure. But it's funny to think like their first thought for that was Bruno. They do eventually get Bruno to do like sit down interviews for the Kurt Angle DVD, so there is some Bruno TNA connection in the end. But obviously, he doesn't do anything with TNA in terms of appearing live. The decision was made not to hire Matt Morgan, who came in on his own dime for a meeting a couple of months ago. Jim Cornette, who is Morgan's biggest supporter in the world since he was the main star in OVW for a year, is still amazed how a 6'10" guy who, quote from Jim Cornette, is a main event heel caliber promo guy can't find work in the wrestling business. I disagree with that assessment personally, Jim.
I don't really remember Matt Morgan being a big promo guy.
I wouldn't say he's a bad promo, but I also wouldn't say he's a particularly great one.
Like, listen, we can all be clouded by, like, our own judgment based on if we like someone or not, but, like, Jim Cornette is a promo guy. You think he'd be able to, like, discern that. Unless he was just trying to get the guy a job.
He's just blinded by his body. Raven was on Wrestling Observer Live on March 12th, updating on his health situation. He said he was at first depressed about being taken off TV. That was the angle. He did say he was going to kill himself.
Yes. He's just playing into the angle, actually.
It is worrying that he's now on the radio saying he was depressed. But now he is happy he got the break, so it's okay.
He's probably like, I've been really hurt for a long time and didn't know.
He's still at 280 pounds due to problems with his thyroid and adrenal glands, as well as high blood sugar, as well as his body not producing testosterone. He was 250 pounds last summer when he started noticing the difference. The problems are due to 2 decades of steroid and other drug usage, but also said when it came to steroids that when he broke into wrestling and was 220 pounds and was a small guy, without them he'd have never gotten in. So he feels it was worth it, even though his health is failing.
Yeah, I can see his point.
At one point, before a doctor found the root of all of his problems, he was sleeping 12 hours a day and had no energy at all until they found he wasn't producing any testosterone. He's getting replacement therapy as well as medication to get his thyroid back working. He does have an angle discussed for his return. And to wrap up the news, an extra long news segment. Lex Lovett informed Jarrett this past week that he was quitting the promotion. Lovett was actually the brainchild behind the Spirit Squad and was doing an offshoot of it for TNA that actually had an explosion before the WWE crew appeared on Raw. Wow. So, actually, do I have to check? Is Lex Lovett done? Let me check. Do you have to do a remember when for Lex Lovett?
Oh, I have so many of them.
Yeah.
I have one.
Wait, do we have to see? Is this it? This is it, Liam. Do remember when for Lex Lovett, please.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
Remember when Lex Lovett and Buck Quartermain used to team?
Yeah, one of my favorite jobber teams.
And then remember when...
Johnny Fairplay.
Fuck you, I was close. I had Johnny. And then do you remember when Johnny Fairplay tried to recruit them for that one pay-per-view?
Successfully recruited them, but then never did anything.
That's it.
What a run.
What a run. Is Buck Quartermain still around? That's the question.
Yeah, he's still on TV this month, so...
Thank God.
Only twice did he wrestle Abyss. I would have been sure it would have been more.
Yeah, I would have put money on more, to be honest.
Only twice did he wrestle Monty, too. I also would have been sure it was more. I was actually thinking about this while watching this month of TNA, but you don't have, like, beloved jobbers anymore.
Well, yeah, because then they get over and they become just people.
Because, like, I have one of those, like, weird soft spots for, like, Lex Lovett, Buck Quartermain, Mikey Batts, Jarrell Clark. Like, it's one of those things, like, listen, they're not good, but I have a little bit of nostalgia for those weirdos, just because, like, they were job guys, and it's fun to see them. And I'm not sure is that a thing anymore, like, because you had, like, the Mulkeys as well, didn't you? Serpentico's a good one.
And then you had Fuego del Sol for a while there.
But then he actually got over, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I think the problem is everyone wants to be a star. And it's like, no one just wants to be a job guy.
No one wants to get stuck, because Lex Lovett's been in TNA. His first TNA match was February 2003. So, like, he was in the sphere of TNA for 3 years as nothing but a job guy.
Yeah. Like Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler, early AEW.
And again, there was like a groundswell around them as they turned that into a story, and there was like people kind of like lovable losers.
I don't mind gimmick jobbers, like jobbers that like have a shtick as well. But I know you're right. There definitely isn't. They're not as prevalent. But I think like AEW. Well, the problem is like WWE doesn't use local talent ever, and then
very, very, very rarely.
So they don't also like have people that they just go to repeatedly or even signed to just be like job guys that haven't been pushed before or whatever. Like there's no like explicit just job people. So that's where like they've died out on that aspect. So they're not really around anymore.
Because like when you look at like guys like Lovett and Quartermain, like they are perfectly fundamentally mechanically good wrestlers. Like they are like the perfect job guys in that they're bland and not interesting, but mechanically perfectly solid. Like that is the perfect kind of wrestler you want for that role. Whereas as you said, everyone's trying to be a good wrestler now. No one wants to be a job guy forever. So
yeah, no one wants to be a job guy forever, even though it's a very respectful part of wrestling.
If you were to offer me like a guaranteed 10-year run as a guy who just fills a Lex Lovett role on a TV show, again, we were talking about my fundamental lack of ambition on the watch along. I would do that. I would be like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, farewell Lex Lovett. You are beloved for your bald man job guy routine.
You're beloved.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, that's where we ended.
That brings us to broad topics, starting not with the NWA World Title Program. Fuck that, we'll start with the Jarrett antics.
Yes, because they're more fun.
The real World Title Program this month, which is typical Jeff Jarrett. I'm actually almost surprised the 8-man tag didn't main event the pay-per-view.
I'm not, but like it was refreshing.
The Jarrett, while not world champion, is still the center of attention, but he did give up the main event this month.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, he doesn't seem to care that much about losing the title. Like, he cares more about blackmailing. That seems to be his real focus this month, and not so much regaining his world title. He seems actually quite happy without it. He's having a grand old time this month. He's just goofing off with his pals, blackmailing a woman, recording a man and his family.
Yeah, all the good daytime activities that people go through after they suffer a loss.
This is Jeff Jarrett's wholesome month.
The man's thriving.
Yeah.
So, if you remember last month, Sting left. Sting retired. He's gone. But Eric Young was like, I don't think he's gone, guys. I think Sting is still around. I think Sting is still waiting to attack us from any angle. And Jeff Jarrett is like, shut the fuck up, dude. We got rid of him. He's gone forever. Why are you bringing my mood down?
I'm so happy after losing the world title, man. Stop bumming me out.
I played no real role in Sting being gone, but he is gone, so I'm happy.
I like that part of Eric Young's fear comes from plagiarism of copyright materials.
Yeah, there's a moment this month where he's like, no, don't stop calling me Showtime. He'll get mad at me. Stop doing it.
It almost seemed like because it happened like 2 weeks into like the month, or like I guess a month total of this story being told, that they just realized halfway through that Eric Young has the same nickname, or like has a nickname that is the same as Sting's catchphrase.
Yeah. And
they're like, holy shit, we have something with that.
We've had this guy be paranoid for like 3 weeks now. We haven't actually hit on that.
It's a great subplot.
So the February 18 Impact, JB has Jeff Jarrett. He said he was screwed at Against All Odds as Christian beat him for the NWA World title. But he's going to take that negative, and Liam, he's going to turn it into a positive. Because there's an 8-man tag at Destination X. They don't say who's in it. But and he's going to eliminate his problems there. And then he's like, we drove Sting out of TNA. To which Eric Young is like, is he gone though? Is he though? I don't think he's gone. And Jarrett's like, shut up.
He's like, why I oughta?
Jackie comes in, she's like, I'm still mad at you, and Jeff is like, I have this tape, Jackie, and we can make a deal. We can either show this tape later tonight to the world, and people can see all your behaviors, or you can be our slave. So that's Jackie's choice.
And he also mentions that this is a copy of the tape. He has the master tape at home.
Yeah, he is very smart like that. So if she stole it, if the tape was taken and ran away with, which may become a theme this month, he would still have the regular tape.
Very smart of this man. The smartest man in the room, Jeff Jarrett.
So later in that show, they're about to sit down for one of their many viewing parties this month. The Planet Jarrett viewing party is the most recurring segment in this month of March 2006.
And it's always good.
They are always good. They're always like super excited. They're hyped up. They're like, we're going to watch a tape.
Like Jeff Jarrett as someone viewing a pro wrestling show stinks. But it seems like a lot of fun to hang out with Jeff Jarrett and kayfabe. The man is always happy.
My boy is in his hype crews around him. They're all very excited. They're all just like high-fiving.
They've all seen it before too. They're like, yeah, let's put it on again.
So they're about to watch the Jackie tape, and Jackie says she'll leave if she gets the tape. And Jeff is like, leave? We don't want you to leave. You're going to become our slave.
He's like, you had your chance to go. Now you're going to stay.
Yeah, it's like this tape might end up on the internet if you leave, but now you're going to do whatever we want. You can't quit like Sting did. We're going to keep you here.
And then they, like, my favorite thing is before they settle down to, like, watch the tape, is a great line from Alex Shelley, where he goes, I went to art school for this, you know? And then he goes, yeah, and here's where I put in the star wipe.
Oh, there's many great lines from Alex Shelley.
Alex Shelley, like, Paparazzi Productions might be a top 3 gimmick of all time.
Yeah, because it's basically like take Alex Shelley's sarcastic sense of humor and just ramp it up as far as you possibly can.
It's like, take, like, the, like almost gamer culture nerd humor of the time and, like, translate it into a wrestling You know what it is? We always talk about how Red Letter Media is the father of internet humor. Like, it's like someone, like, took a Red Letter Media bit and put it on TV on a wrestling show. When
did Red Letter Media start?
Oh, after this for sure.
So Alex Shelley is the father of internet humor.
But it wasn't on the internet. No, Red Letter Media 2004.
Oh, goddammit. Well, technically, we can make the case that the genesis of this is truly the Goldilocks verse. So...
But you know what? It makes sense, right? Same era, too.
When Jarrett threw a shot at Sting quitting, he was like, Sting isn't gone, and Jarrett got mad, and Scott is like, please, Jeff, don't put your hands on a member of Team Canada. Have the respect to respect my students and not put your hands on them. And then he turns to Eric Young himself and slaps him and tells him to stop talking about Sting.
And then Jeff Jarrett grabs him by his collar.
So then Jeff turns to Alex Shelley and he's like, I would like you to get proof that Sting is a quitter. So go to him out in California and get me pure, raw evidence that he's gone and he's never coming back.
My favorite thing here is, like, the thing I find interesting, at least, about, like, the Jeff Jarrett character in Planet Jarrett is he doesn't get physical with any of them, even with someone like a Showtime. Like, he's almost like a disappointed father instead of, like, an abusive teammate.
Yeah, I thought of it as more like he's this, like, annoying younger brother.
Yeah, because, like, remember at first when, like, Eric Young was first, like, doing the whole neurotic thing, like, Jarrett was like, calm down, Eric. He's gone. It's fine.
Because, like, the best part of all of it is that Jarrett takes Eric Young seriously. Like, the problem of this angle is that, like, he can't just ignore Eric Young. He can't just be like, that's just Eric being Eric. It's like, Eric's paranoia is getting into his own head, and he's like, I guess we do need proof that he's gone. Alex, go get proof.
Yeah, it's perfect. It treats it with, like, the slightest tinge of, like, seriousness that it works. And then Gale and Scott, like, do a supervillain laugh at Jackie Gator's face.
Yeah, they're like, you'll stuck here forever.
I honestly think that, like, everything about these segments is so good because, like, Shelley completely, like, kills it in this spot and, like, has an identity and it's great. But I also think that like, everyone, all the, like, the supplemental characters that don't get a lot normally have been great. Like, every time Gale and Jackie are together, they bounce off each other really well and are really funny. And, like, Eric and Scott obviously have great chemistry. And, like, when Jeff Jarrett is doing this kind of, like, goober heel mid-card stuff, he's legitimately funny and charming.
He's the best.
Yeah. Like, if he was doing this, like, all the time, he would be held in much higher regard, I feel.
He immediately moved out of the world title picture into a wacky, goofy mid-card program and suddenly became the best thing on the show. It's like, work it out, buddy! Yeah,
just let it get through your head.
Main event of this episode was Team 3D and Ron Killings facing Team Canada.
They had the segment backstage too, where Team 3D ran into Killings in the hole, and they did, like, it doesn't feel like TNA. Like, it feels like a Raw segment. Where they just, like, have we meet up in the backstage and have an interaction. Let's go beat them up.
And, like, Team 3D's catchphrase is "What's up?" And Truth's catchphrase is "What's up?" So Truth was like, "What's up?" And they were like, "What's up?" And then Truth was like, "What's up?" And they were like, "What's up?" And then they did the "What's up?" So that was a cute little bit.
But it's very, like, Raw. Especially when, like, at the end, like, Brother Ray has to hit his, like, death, taxes, and tables line for the out.
Earlier in the show, we did have one of a few features on Ron Killings this month. So it's a little Ron Killings rebuild month going on here, where they're trying to refocus his character post Trail K. They're trying to put a little spotlight on Ron. So there's a couple of video features. The one on this show talks about his upbringing, his love of music. They show a picture of him and Tupac. So Tupac making his TNA debut on the February 18th, 2006 episode of Impact.
So Ron Killings says that he danced at James Brown's birthday party and met Tupac and Eazy-E. And then I was like, this is a charismatic, handsome, young guy who was already making strides in the entertainment industry. Why the hell is he in wrestling?
Yeah, well, like, because he goes into that about how, like, wrestling was, like, the conduit for him being, like, a dancer, an athlete, and a musician all in one. It's like, no, you should have tried, like, the dancer or musician or athlete part of that, not the wrestling bit.
No, you really dedicated yourself to the wrong medium.
Yeah, he didn't want to go to college for football, didn't want to go more into music, so he started to sell drugs instead.
Yeah, well, can't blame him.
Before he was eventually like, I should do wrestling. And then he focused on what he believed in, which is music, family, faith, and belief.
Ron Killings seems like a really nice guy.
He does. Seems like a cool, charming guy who deserves every ounce of success he's ever had.
I remember a few years ago, I watched, like, a video of him, like, going back to his, like, old community and just going, like, house to house and talking to people, and it was very sweet.
And, like, we talked about this, but, like, he's legitimately, like, a top 5-star in WWE at the moment.
Yeah, like I said, they will do the Sami Zayn thing where, like, they'll be like, fuck, we have to give him a title match, and, like, we might have to have him win. Because, like, once every year, the WWE Universe, like, picks a guy and goes, they have been underserved in their career and we're going to make them get a push. It went from Brian, then it went to Kofi, then it went to Sammy, and now it's happening to R-Truth.
He's just charming and likable, and people love him.
And I think that's the thing. Like, WWE for so long has, like, held down the people that you like, that it's people, now they just easily get the story of, give someone we like some moment. Like, they've really developed, and it's yearly. It's literally, like, around the clock. Like, this time every year around Mania.
And more often than not, they steadfastly still refuse to give the person their moment.
They gave it to Brian. They gave it to Kofi. They kind of gave it to Sammy with the tag belts in the Mania main event.
But even Brian and Kofi, they were dragged fucking kicking and screaming into doing.
So it's like, who knows? We will see what happens. I would love if R-Truth won a big one. That'd be really fun.
Because you would only have to have him win like the tag titles as well.
And people would be so happy with it, yeah.
So like you don't even have, it's not even Sammy where like you should have made a case that he maybe should have won the belt. Like Ron can just win the tag titles and thumbs up, everyone's happy.
And makes sense with the people who are the tag champs too.
Yeah, if you have a story there that they're telling and they won't pay off because they always do the hard part and then never the easy part. Like the hard part of get people to care, get people over, and then they're like, have that guy win? Fuck no.
They can team in with Austin Creed and they can be Truth and Consequences.
Oh. Big Bound for Glory 2007 teaming again.
Like that?
So this 3D and Killings against Team Canada main event. Mike tries to get Don to enthusiastically say death, taxes and tables, but he gives very unclear instructions. He says, repeat after me, death, taxes and tables, but then Don tries to say it alongside him, so they just kind of stumble and fall all over each other as they're trying to say death, taxes, tables enthusiastically.
Taxes and tables.
3D Flapjack Killings onto PD. Today announces that the main event of next week's Impact will be Ron Killings and Rhino challenging AMW for the NWA World Tag Team titles.
It'd be really embarrassing if Team Canada won here.
No, unless they've been 3D, and then they're like, they don't deserve tag title shots, but Ron still does.
Well, they just add Team Canada to the match.
It's true, could be a 3-way. They do the Waz up with a truth leg drop off the top.
It's better.
So then they do the get the tables, but Liam Bully pushed Ron instead of Devon.
What?
Because all the black guys are the same, I think is the bit they're going for.
It's happened like a few times in history, hasn't it?
Yeah, Bully likes that bit where he's like, if he's in the ring with two black guys, he pushes the wrong black guy.
Is the gimmick that he can't tell the difference?
I think it might be.
Team 3D. What a weird crew.
Devon was not pleased. Team Canada then cut off getting the tables, but Truth pinned A1 with an axe kick. AMW attack after the match. Rhino makes the save and gores Chris Harris. So next episode of Impact, JB has AMW. There's an 8-man tag at Destination X where they finally announce who's in the match. So it's Jarrett, Abyss, and AMW against Rhino, 3D, and Ron Killings. So that's your Jarrett match for the pay-per-view. Jarrett comes in with Shelley and he's like, we've got the footage of Sting. We're doing a viewing party tonight.
Viewing party. They say, Jackie Gator, get the room set up.
Yeah. And also they're like, Jackie, here's a weird outfit for you.
Yeah, pervert shit.
So there's then a show running angle where Gail and Jackie are backstage multiple times, or Gail gives her outfit to wear and then she's getting dressed and Jackie's like, I don't want to wear this, and Gail's like, you have to wear this.
Gail's like, well, you don't have to wear it, but I wouldn't want that video on the internet.
I do like how they immediately go back to, we are blackmailing you.
We have you doing sex things on video and we will post it.
We had another Ron Killings video on this show where he talks about after his run-ins with the law, he decided to go straight and found wrestling as that place to channel all of his interests back into one. He talks about being the first black NWA World Champion, and now he's emerged from his cocoon and he's ready to go. So it's a weird thing to refer to TLK as, but...
I like that there's like a little bit where he's like, yeah, when I first came to TNA, I was kind of a rude dude.
Yeah, it's like, I wasn't a very good guy at the start there, but also Hermie Sadler did a racism to me, so I should have been the babyface.
But, like, they don't frame it that way at all. It's just, I was kind of mean. It's like, you're pretty justified, man.
I had a bad attitude, but I'm a nice guy. So, main event of the episode for the NWA World Tag Team titles, America's Most Wanted versus Rhino and Ron Killing.
I don't really have a lot to say about it. I mean, Rhino and Ron Killings is objectively a cool tag team. And it is... Like, I won't knock this match as a TV main event.
Yeah, they replay the gore from Against All Odds, so the gore out of the stands. Also, you'd note if you watch the opening titles, they've added the gore through the wall to the opening titles.
Of course they have. Come on now.
They're reinforcing all of their wacky gores. Mike Tenay is like, Spike TV officials fucking love this shit. They're so happy that we have this pay-per-view quality match as our TV main event.
I mean, yeah, that's a good way of selling it.
Ron puts on Storm's cowboy hat and does a missile dropkick, which I appreciate. I always like when people steal Storm's cowboy hat.
It is like, you have a hat, expect it to be stolen for a pop.
So Rhino brawls up the ramp with Chris Harris, and Rhino is standing at the top of the ramp looking down at Chris Harris ready to gore him. And suddenly, from the tunnel, Abyss emerges.
Like Jason.
There's a good, I think 11 seconds between when you first see Abyss and he first lays his hands on Rhino. So he does this like slow horror movie villain walk up the tunnel, slowly Abyss-like. And the tunnel is like, there's fog in the tunnel and there's a light in the back of the tunnel. So it is like perfectly lit and presented as a horror movie moment as Abyss emerges very slowly doing his very slow walk before he grabs Rhino by the hair and pulls him down.
Abyss missed his calling for a cinematic match star.
Oh, he would have been so good if you just like put him as like Jason in a cinematic match.
You could have totally done like some sort of like big tag match, right? Like, you know what would have been a really fun combat, like if the timelines had have like worked up, doing like the Decay versus like the Rascals. Like, and you just have like the Rascals running around like a campsite and Abyss hunting them the whole time.
Because like, Abyss did do some cinematic stuff. Like the second Hardy cinematic match was against Decay.
He did like the End of the World one, right?
And they did the Apocalypto one, and even like the Great War one at Bound for Glory was like there was a cinematic portion of that as well as a regular match.
But like you could totally see him like hunting down the two like weed heads, just really like playing into the horror like 90s slasher tropes.
And they do like 7 false finishes where they think they killed him and he just keeps coming back.
Yeah, right. They keep hitting him with moves and he just completely no-sells it.
We buried him alive and then he just emerges.
Yeah, this is what cinematic matches were meant to be.
Bits.
Which is, again, proof that TNA is the only company that has done good cinematic matches.
Yeah, because they were about bits.
Except for, like, you know, the Briscoe vs. Briscoe one, but that's just a match that was filmed in their backyard. That is not a cinematic match, I would argue.
Yeah, that's, like, closer in spirit to, like, the 2000s WWF hardcore stuff than, like, cinematic stuff.
100%.
Where Al Snow ends up in a river, those kind of matches.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Abyss pulls Rhino down, and then he just black hole slams him through the stage.
Awesome.
He picks him up and he spins him around this little column to the side of the stage, and they crashed through it. And I think Abyss got worried at first because he hit it first and it didn't really move.
He had to like push.
Yeah, he had to lean further in and then it did collapse in. So Rhino and Abyss are still falling through things.
It was a very awkward little fall.
This left Killings isolated. Super Kick and Death Sentence gave AMW the win as they then replay the black hole slam through the stage a couple times. They didn't replay the slow walk up the tunnel a couple of times, which disappointed me, but they did replay the black hole slam through the stage. So we go backstage. Planet Jarrett, they're having the viewing party for Alex Shelley's Sting footage. Jackie comes out in a chimney sweep outfit.
I think it's meant to be like what do they call them? Like a maid?
But it's more like an 1800s maid.
Yeah, it's like a French maid, but like an old French maid.
Because she has one of like those old duster things.
Yeah, it's not a chimney sweep.
But my mind went to like if you had a maid in Oliver, it would look like this. So that's what she's wearing.
She's still inside the house.
Not as slutty as you would have expected for how they were building it up, so more restrained.
Yeah, it's very surprising, actually.
Jeff does a bit where he drops the tape, and it's like, Jackie, can you pick that tape up? And she does like the crouchiest crouch to pick it back up that she can, so as not to like lean into Jeff's creepiness.
Perversion. And I like his Selvit as being like, fuck, she got me. She got me on that one.
So we are presented with Alex Shelley's tape of evidence that Sting is retired, and it is tremendous.
Yeah, I remember this. This is like the thing I remember most about Sting's early run, is this video.
So Sting is picking up his kids, the little Stingers, little Steve and little Garrett, who recently appeared on AEW's Revolution in Sting's last match. Their first television appearance.
You know, I was doing some like TNA watching the other day. And in the like big like Sting great AEW promo where he goes like, no one's ever touched my family before, I was watching old stuff and I saw Kurt attacking fucking Garrett. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, in the build up to Bound for Glory 2007, Kurt goes out to California and starts stalking Garrett. So not me, his Sting's son.
Yeah, he like beats him up and like then actually Garrett like beats him up and gets in a car.
Yeah, and tries to, and like they cut back to Sting and he's like, run, get away.
Yeah, Sting's watching it on TV like, run, Garrett, run.
So this is the debut of the little Stingers. It is funny how often that happens. That just like, you know, they were a very big part of Evolution, and here we are talking about their debut on television on our literal next episode.
One of these kids would go up to be a streamer.
Well, yeah, one of them loves Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny. I wonder if he plays with Paul White.
Which I believe is Garrett is the Destiny streamer.
Makes sense.
So Shelley is watching Sting pick them up from school. Shelley is watching them play with their mom, playing basketball. Shelley is like, look, they suck. And then one of them makes a shot and he's like, well, you know.
Maybe it's like, he's like, yeah, well, you know, everyone gets a lucky shot.
Then watches Sting go to the gym, and then they cut back, and Jeff Jarrett is absolutely delighted. He's like, there it is. There is demonstrable
He's living his life.
It's like, Alex, you have done such a good job. Well done. This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. We have proven beyond all doubt that Sting is gone, and he's never coming back.
Bravo.
And then they pan to Eric Young, who's like, did you see that? He's going to the gym. Guys, why is he going to the gym?
He's getting ready for a return.
He wants to get in shape to come back and kill us. And Jeff Jarrett's mood immediately goes from, Alex, you are the best person I've ever seen, to, Alex, you fucking useless failure.
Yeah. He switches up on him on that one.
It goes back to my favorite part of this, in that, like, Jarrett is delighted until Eric Young has doubts, and Jarrett, he takes the Eric Young doubts seriously. He can't just dismiss them.
And he's like, God damn it, Alex, you failure.
So he's like, you have to go back out to California again. You need to go up to Sting. Never mind this clandestine stuff. Never mind filming him and his family from the bushes. Never mind all that. You have to go up to Sting and ask him. Ask him, is he done? I want it on tape. I want him saying it. So go out there, bring that back for next week.
Alex is not happy with this.
So, opener of the March 4th Impact. America's Most Wanted, Abyss and Jeff Jarrett face the wonderful Jobber All-Star team of Shark Boy, Norman Smiley, Cassidy Riley, and Buck Quatermain.
It's Norman Smiley's back.
Yeah, reuniting with Shark Boy for the first time since their 2003 tag team.
I mean, are we excited to see him back? And again, he was like the best part of the match too.
It's really funny that this is meant to be an enhancement match for the four guys who have the pay-per-view 8-man tag. And by design, the star of the match is Norman Smiley.
Yeah.
Because, like, the match is 2 minutes long, most of which is brawling, except for Norman, who hits his awesome wind-up scoop slam and his big wiggle, which gets a big pop before he turns into a black hole slam, and then Jarrett doesn't let Abyss pin him and strokes Norman for the win instead. It's really funny to me that you watch this match, which is meant to be a total squash, and Norman Smiley probably gets the most offense.
Yeah, and looks the best. I was like, let's keep Norman Smiley around. What are we doing?
There is a note. BG James complained.
Just leave it there.
Because he was told not to do his pelvic thrust before the pump handle slam on television. But then Norman Smiley showed up and did the big wiggle on TV, which got over big live. Smiley was brought in as just another jobber role, got a reaction since they remembered him as a character from WCW. So BG's like, that was my spot. I used to do that for a pop, and now Norman Smiley's doing it, and I was told I couldn't do it.
I would argue that BG James' version is more vulgar.
Norman Smiley is playful.
Yeah, BG James bends him over and fucks him in the ass.
Whereas Norman Smiley just gives him a little wiggle.
Yeah, and then he does like a spin. He makes it jovial. BG's is like uncomfortable. Now maybe that is because it's BG James. But, you know, I can understand the difference.
So, after the match, Alex Shelley comes down to the ring with his new Sting tape. He hands it to Jarrett, and Jarrett is once again delighted. He is so happy that he leaps into Scott D'Amore's arms in celebration that they have this tape of Sting, presumably declaring that he is gone and never coming back.
And, like, Shelley's trying to say something, but, like, they all leave, and then Shelley goes to the one person who will understand him, Eli, and is like, man, I don't know. And Eli's like, oh, shit.
So, JB has Matt Bentley and Tracy. We'll talk about that when we're talking about the extensive Matt Bentley and Lance Hoyt feud. But Planet Jarrett do walk in and bust that interview and tell JB, we have a viewing party tonight. He demands once again Jackie prepare the viewing party room, as Shelley does not look pleased. He's sheepish. He is looking at the floor. He does not appear happy with his work this week, as opposed to last week where he was very happy with his work.
And Jarrett, like, is just so caught up in the moment he doesn't even realize it.
Yeah, because the entire bit is that like Alex Shelley is like occasionally like, it's like, Alex, don't be modest. Your work is fantastic. He's way too modest for his own good.
Which is like, the Alex Shelley character has never once been accused of being modest.
That's Jeff Hardy's gimmick.
To the top.
So Jackie first declines to prepare the viewing room, which Jeff has to then shout at her. But while he's doing that, he just offhandedly hands the tape of Sting to Eric Young. And as he mentioned, Shelley mentioned something to Eric Young in the opening segment. So Eric Young decides to abscond with the tape.
Runs away.
If no one sees it, it's not real.
That's a fair point.
So we then have a 6-man tag team match later on that show. Team Canada face Chris Sabin, Jay Lethal, and Sanjay Dutt. And the entire point of this match is Eric Young is wrestling a match. He's in this match, but he is hiding the tape of Sting in the crotch of his gear.
No one will notice. It's fine.
Yeah, like Jarrett comes out mid-match and tries to get it from EY's crotch, and EY's like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing here.
I really appreciate EY's commitment to, if we don't watch it, it doesn't count.
Yeah, anything that happens on it isn't real. So I'm just going to stay and wrestle this 6-man tag and ideally break the tape at some point.
Amazing.
Sabin nails Rude with the world's prettiest tornado DDT. It's so good. That man is the best wrestler that has ever existed.
It's nice that he busted out.
Lethal wiped out EY with a dive, which allowed Jarrett to get the tape back. All the commotion at ringside allowed PD to pin Sanjay with the Canadian Destroyer.
You know, James Storm and EY are pretty good friends, alright? They're all in this Planet Jarrett thing together. And it just reminds me, why was he so mean to EY that one time he went to buy condoms?
Because of all of this. Because EY brought Sting's wrath back on them. So he has never forgiven him.
It was a years old grudge.
Yeah.
My God.
So when they went to buy condoms, he was like, fuck you. Remember that time Sting retired and you brought him back because you were too paranoid to accept that he was retired?
That's like up there with the Team 3D funeral for me. That segment is so funny.
Because like that is the one thing you can say about Russo TNA. It does get sillier.
Yeah, which is the best. Like, if there's one thing he did understand about TNA, it was the comedy.
Yeah, it's not meant to be boring.
Yeah. He understood the difference between WWE comedy and TNA comedy.
Which is, this is the reason all of this stuff works, because with Planet Jarrett and the tapes and the paparazzi productions and the filming Sting, it is firmly TNA comedy. Like there's a segment on the pay-per-view that you just started, I think, clapping during, because it is just like pure unfiltered TNA comedy.
Yeah. That reminds me, like, some of the like early Vince stuff where like he's with AJ and AJ's like, I can do a flip in the pool, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's good comedy. I felt like and to be fair to Vince Russo, a weird statement, we've always said good on-screen character. If there was someone else controlling him, he'd be fine.
And once he's not an authority figure as well, ideally.
Yeah, like as a like manager role or like just some weird freak, great.
Like he cut good promos during the sexy era, but also it was an unbearable angle that he wrote.
And again, I'll take the sex era over the Dutch Mantel boring era.
Yeah. So we once again have the second viewing party. They have Shelley's tape. Jarrett is like bigging up Shelley as Shelley looks extremely anxious. So Shelley is once again stalking Sting. He's watching Sting coach his kids' football team and walks hand in hand with his daughter. And he's like, listen, I know you want me to go up and confront him, Jeff, but we can build up to that. We don't need to do that immediately, okay?
And he's like, I'm not scared.
We can ease ourselves into it.
He's like, I'm not scared.
There's a great moment where Sting is bringing his kids into the car after the football practice, and Sting's daughter is just looking right at Alex Shelley the whole time. And I'm not sure, is that meant to be like the angle that his daughter has like spotted Shelley?
I think it is. The idea is like that Sting knows about this. He saw the show last week, and like even if he didn't know about this, he does know about it now.
But it is very funny that she's just glaring at Shelley. The Sting family crosses a road, and Shelley makes a Beatles reference and calls them John, Paul, George, and Stingo.
And then he goes, Beatles reference.
Sting kisses his daughter, and instead Shelley quips that Jarrett should give him a kiss with his guitar.
Doesn't he say that about the daughter?
Oh, but did he say about the daughter instead of Jarrett?
I thought he said
daughter with the guitar?
Jarrett should give her a kiss with his guitar.
I thought he said him, but he might have said her. Sting's playing golf, continues to watch.
Right. See, I think I like Mandela affected this. I have a memory of Sting like hitting the golf ball at Shelley in the bushes.
No.
But I think I must have just invented that.
Yeah.
Wild. Maybe it's because like right after the confrontation happens and I've just like put them together in my head.
So Shelley is like, I think Sting spotted me, Jeff. I think he's seen me. And then Sting emerges from his car, confronts Shelley.
Wait, do you want to be Sting and I'll be Shelley?
Oh, sure. So Sting emerges from the car, very angry, confronts Shelley, is like, you think this is funny?
No.
Why would you do this?
I was told to.
The defeat in Alex's voice and the no, and I was told to, is
and then Sting just goes, "You're an idiot. Get a life."
Yeah, he's mad. He's like, you crossed the line. You confronted my family. This is unacceptable. So it won't be Sting coming to Destination X. It'll be Steve Borden. And as you said, he just ends the segment just shouting, "Get a life, idiot!" at Alex Shelley.
But like, Shelley's probably like paid for this, you know? Like, he's probably, this is his job. I was told to.
He's just an auteur. He is just a filmmaker.
Yeah.
They then cut back to the viewing room.
Everyone despondent.
For an amazing reaction shot as they pan across the entirety of Planet Jarrett, starting from like AMW, going across the Team Canada, going across the Gale, to Jackie, who is smiling like a Cheshire cat in all of this, which is fantastic. And then back across the EY, who does like the giant bomb guy blinking meme?
Yeah.
He does like a version of that before a big gulp, and like Bobby Roode is like biting his towel, and James Storm's drink is like dropping out of his mouth.
Yeah, he's drinking, like, yeah, but it's just like free falling out of his agape mouth.
So like the whole time they're doing that reaction shot, you just hear the sound of James Storm's drink dripping onto the floor.
I need this GIF as a reaction GIF.
It's perfect. It is like the world's best reaction. Like in a world where like wrestling is produced for TikTok, basically, like this is it.
TNA was just around at the wrong time.
Yeah. I do love Jackie just being like,
yeah, she got some fucking comeuppance. She didn't get comeuppance, but you know what I mean? Like, she got some revenge.
She has some schadenfreude here.
You can present, like, bad people in storytelling, especially in pro wrestling. They just have to be proved to be bumbling idiots the whole time.
Jarrett then starts shouting at Alex Shelley. It's like, "This seems like a thing you should have told me." And he's like, "Well, I tried to." It's like, "Shut up, Alex." And then EY does a great big gulp as Planet Jarrett are shocked that it's not Sting coming to the pay-per-view. It's Steve Borden.
That's more dangerous. A man called Steve.
So the big hook for the pay-per-view is a legend retires, but a man returns.
I hope AEW uses that.
Yeah, Sting retired. Steve Borden is still around.
Steve Borden never retired. He's got one more match left in him.
End of this show, they go back to Planet Jarrett, where Jarrett's just like lying on a bench. Gale and Scott are there, very worried. Scott is like, "We're screwed." And then Jarrett sits up and he's like, "I have an idea, and I have his number on speed dial."
And he will, like, try to make a holler if you hear me joke. There isn't.
He's gonna holler if you hear me. March 11th, Impact. We go to a feature on Sting as they push the hook, the tagline for the pay-per-view about how a legend retired and a man returns.
I want to give one more shout about these segments real quick. JB has been the perfect, like, not straight man. You can't call him the straight man of the segments, but like, I guess like substitute for the audience. Like, just bug-eyed open, not knowing what's going on. Just like, he's just been perfect in like this goofball role.
Because yeah, we did replace Shane Douglas with Jeremy Borash this month because Jay Penzer is now ring announcer, so JB has moved to backstage interviewer. And like Shane Douglas, I find funny because he's like, "Ooh, franchise! I'm a character in the show." Yeah. But I can understand the critiques that perhaps the idea of the backstage interviewer doing that maybe undercuts a lot of the idea of backstage interviews quite often.
Yeah. because JB is never stealing the show, he's just emphasizing.
He does always compliment scenes, and he is a very important part of TNA comedy, because like JB filmed the Sting stuff. Alex Shelley obviously presented as the guy who filmed it, but JB was the guy with the camera filming that out in California with Sting's family.
JB truly being like a all over the team player guy.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like he's clearly a guy who he's a Russo disciple. He did come up in Russo era WCW. He was Russo's guy in like World Wrestling All-Stars. Like he was always like a Russo adjacent guy, so he always had like arguably the wrong instincts. And
that explains the NXT being bad.
Yeah, and I was like, you watch some of this stuff and it's like the good version of that. You know, it's charming, it's funny, it's TNA comedy. And then you watch NXT and it's like unhinged, terrible. So it's he's clearly lost touch with his roots.
Or he's gotten too in touch with his roots.
Arguably. So we have an interview with Jarrett. Mike Tenay is asking him questions. Well, I think Mike Tenay is actually never on camera. They just show Jarrett responding to questions. But the framing is that Mike Tenay is trying to get the answers out of him. So he's like, I never went to his house. That's not stalking. We were in a public space the whole time. How dare Sting be outraged about this? But as we mentioned, the hook at the end of last week's Impact is that Jarrett has somebody to counteract Sting, and he's never been in TNA.
I disagree. There's someone that looked a whole lot like him in TNA before.
Yeah, my boy Del Rios is being erased from TNA history.
He's not the Del Rio I'd rather erase from TNA history.
Ooh. But yeah, he's known this guy since early in his career, up to the death of WCW, and then he's going to be showing up this Sunday at Destination
It's
X.
Goldberg, baby. He's finally here.
Yeah, like, I wonder who people speculate, because, like, obviously Goldberg was linked with TNA a lot this month, and maybe they did want it to be Goldberg, but, like, Goldberg wouldn't be on Jarrett's side. That would be very silly.
But maybe people thought of it anyway.
Yeah, and maybe that's what people thought the tease was. It ends up being someone other than Goldberg.
Someone more fun, honestly, and coming in at the perfect time.
Main event of this episode, Rhino, Ron Killings and Team 3D defeat the Diamonds in the Rough, Shannon Moore and Maverick Matt.
Maverick Matt.
It's really weird that, like, just as the Bentley bounce is, like, most over, they're pivoting away from it to be, like, Maverick Matt, not Matt Bentley.
Maybe it's just the thing of, like, we didn't want him to be over.
But he was, for baffling reasons, a babyface. Even though he's a very bad babyface. He's a natural heel.
Oh.
Don thanks the fans for making Bound for Glory the highest rated wrestling DVD in the Billboard charts.
I thought you were about to say of all time.
Ever. No one has ever bought more copies of a DVD than Bound for Glory 2005.
Would you doubt it?
Moore looked to springboard, but Bully just stands there and catches him with a German. I do actually have that DVD. Simon Diamond jumped on comment. There's a baseball thing going on again, where earlier in the show, Mike Tenay and Chris Sabin go and present the White Sox with the X Division title because Simon Diamond interrupted them last time. So AJ Brzezinski and Dale Torborg finally accept the belt, and they say they'll give it to the player of the game. But then Simon Diamond comes on commentary in this main event, is like, "Hey, how dare you? You should be doing that."
That's fair. I like that he like gets mad at Mike Tenay for not caring. He's like, "You're a wrestling historian. You should hate this."
You should also be outraged at the idea of baseball men having wrestling championships.
I think the idea that, like, he's like, you should be mad that he didn't win this, I think is what he's, like, pissed about. And it's like, does he know he's not really the champion, right?
It is symbolic, Simon. Merely symbolic.
Joe didn't lose the belt here.
Tracy tries to interfere, so Team 3D give her the waz-up headbutt. And then they do a sudden cutaway and cut back to the get the table spot. And if you watch closely, it does appear that Devon lingers when he gives Tracy the what's-up headbutt. So I believe the idea, or the spot they did that did not make air, there's no note about this, I was hoping there would be, was that Devon held his face there a little while.
Yeah. Not like as a pervert in real life. We should probably specify.
Just as a pervert as a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one that they were probably like, we know we air at 11 o'clock, but we still can't put that on TV, Devon.
Still a little risky. It's not the Attitude Era.
They go to do the get the tables, but Killings and Devon demand that Bully gets the tables instead.
Again, he's confused.
They're taking their power back, I guess.
I did like that he was like, do you remember that one, like, Teddy Long, like, promo with them?
You're gonna have to be more specific.
Where he was like, Devon, why do you always have to get the tables?
Oh, yeah.
I just remember that, like, it's the delivery of it was, like, so good. During, like that whole Teddy Long thing, the White Boy Challenge era.
Like 2004-ish.
Yeah.
So Bully, after being demanded to get the tables, sulks a little bit.
Which tells us that Bully always viewed getting the tables as a demeaning act.
Yeah, he's been told to go get them, and now he's like, "Oh, I'm being made to do the manual labor instead of getting to lead the crowd in chants." Ugh.
So it's like, he clearly does not value Devon as a true partner, because he views that as a negative task.
Yeah, he's disrespectful to his buddy who keeps getting tables for him.
To his brother.
Rhino Gore Skipper Truth pins David Young with the axe kick. Planet Jarrett come out to the ramp and stare down the babyfaces before we head to the pay-per-view. There was also an NWA World Tag Team title match on the show. The Naturals faced America's Most Wanted. Once again, this is the 13th Naturals versus AMW match in TNA history, though 2 were on Explosion, so we've only seen 11.
I feel like we've seen them all, though.
I was like, because I was thinking maybe this is the last one, and then we could do a nostalgic AMW versus the Naturals retrospective, but there's one more in like July, so.
A retrospective where we're going to do a watch-along for all the matches.
We're going to sit down and watch every single AMW The Naturals match back to back to back. We'll throw in some Hot Shots matches too, just to to even things out.
Spice it up.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds awful.
Despite recent history, Mike and Don point out that the Naturals have historically had AMW's number. They've beaten them for the tag titles twice, I think. So they do at least point out that despite the fact that they've been beaten by a drum by AMW in the last year or so, they have kind of been a bogey team for AEW historically.
Which is a good little angle to have. That's why, like, long-term rivals are good. Because, like, even if you're having, like, just a tune-up match, there's still a little story to...
Yeah, they do the thing where they pull Harris's crotch into Storm's face, and then Storm falls out of the corner and his crotch drops on Harris's face. And Don says that's like a scene right out of Brokeback Mountain.
The hottest cultural reference of 2006.
Seemingly the only cultural reference of 2006.
Because gay.
The Naturals are running wild, so Gale distracts the referee, and then Team Canada run in. Rude Northern Lariats Douglas. Chase gets handcuffed at the guardrail, where it seemed unnecessary. They were already beaten. But AMW beats Douglas with the death sentence then.
Yeah, fine little match. It's always nice to see some AMW on the TV.
Yeah, two like TV title defenses, neither of which are blowing the socks off the place, but it's nice to get AMW matches on television.
It probably makes sense because there's a lack of pay-per-view title matches, or at least built ones.
Yeah, and they don't really currently have any... I guess they can go back to 3D, that's like the long-term direction, even though they never actually do. But they don't actually have many teams at the moment that they haven't wrestled a billion times like the Naturals.
Yeah.
Like, who else could they wrestle?
No one.
Like, they answer that question by Styles and Daniels and LAX forming. But at the moment, you're like, who could they even wrestle? And the answer is only Team 3D.
They can't do LAX at this point.
No.
That would be a very weird match to do right.
So Destination X 2006, March 12, 2006 opens with a short film called Stung by Fritz Fellini.
And we must simply say, literally better than the Tony Storm gimmick has ever been. And I'm someone who has enjoyed most of the Tony Storm gimmick. They committed here harder than they have ever committed to Tony Storm.
So it's like a black and white film where they're showing like footage of like the pay-per-view matches and the build to the pay-per-view, and then they cut to it's Eric Young and like a mask doing like an old school opera kind of character reacting and miming to all of the things he's watching. So like when he sees Monty Brown and Monty Brown does his taunt, they cut back to masked Eric Young, who also does Monty Brown's taunt. It's all set to a funkier version of L'Amour's Uso
It's a
Rebel,
banger of a tune.
which I definitely knew the name of that song without having to look it up, and I definitely pronounced it really
You said
well.
it on the watch along.
Yeah, I know opera music, but it's the that one. No, that's circus music. It wasn't circus music.
Well, then why was this a clown show?
Well, it was a bit of a clown show. You're not wrong. He was miming. But then Sting shows up at the end of this video, and the big reveal is Eric Young collapses, and like, you realize it's Eric Young who's under this mask. Because this is more artful and interesting than anything they've done with Tony Storm's movies. It's actually crazy.
And like, you could totally do this with Tony Storm, and it would be a killer segment.
That would take actual like effort.
I don't even think it takes that much effort. It just takes 3 hours on a soundstage.
It's Fritz Fellini, which is like the Fellini part of that reference is quite obvious, but it's Fritz because that's Eric Young's shoot name, Jeremy Fritz.
I didn't know that.
So if you're wondering why it's Fritz Fellini, but that's the short film Stung is called. There you go.
Oh, we do know that, like, you know, Eric is someone in that kind of world too, so that makes sense from that perspective.
So there is a show-running story on this where Jeff Jarrett has instructed Alex Shelley and Eric Young to find Sting. And he's like, you go get him. So JB has Team Canada. They're facing the Naturals tonight because Team Canada cost the Naturals the belts on Impact. And Scott's is like, that we know more about being screwed as Canadians in America than the Naturals ever do. We'll win the World X Cup, and Canada has superior social security, superior education, and superior wrestlers.
Not wrong.
Shelley grabs EY as Jarrett has tasked them with finding Sting, and Scott is like, you have a match coming up, Eric. So in the middle of Lance Hoyt versus Matt Bentley,
This is awesome.
we pan up to the rafters. Mike and Don are like, now wait a minute, we have to go to the rafter? JB is in the rafters? As Eric Young and Alex Shelley have concocted a scheme to try and flush out Sting, to try and get information about Sting. So one, they're examining the rafters, naturally, because it's one of Sting's noted homes. The man likes the rafters a lot.
It is a classic Sting spot.
And then 2, Eric Young has decided to drop a bunch of "Have you seen this man?" flyers from the rafters in order to find Sting. So it's like a picture of Steve Borden with contact details for Jeff Jarrett, and it's like Steve Borden, 6'4" or whatever, last seen Venice Beach, California. If you see him, contact Jeff Jarrett immediately.
Which, like, how are they supposed to contact Jeff?
You could find him. He's not that hard to find.
You just gotta shout at him from the crowd and be like, "I found Sting, Jeff."
He's actually right here next to me.
He's under the Sting mask.
Yeah, everyone, there should be that would have been a good bit. A bunch of people in a Sting mask in the crowd, and Eric Young is just pulling the mask off their face.
Yeah, and then he's under them. He's under all of them.
Everybody is Sting. Mm-hmm. We throw to the back after that match where JB has Rhino, Truth, and 3D, and Mike Tenay is like, JB already got down from the rafters and is backstage? That guy's quick.
Yeah, he teleported.
Standard 8-man tag hype. They're like, we're going to beat up our opponents tonight. And then it ended with Truth being like, you can get this, you can get that, what's up? And Bully turning to Devon being like, you have to teach me Ebonics. And I'm like, what is this? What are we doing with this character? Why is this like this?
2006.
This man suddenly has black friends and he is overwhelmed.
He's historically had a black friend for a very long time.
Team Canada defeat the Naturals. Eric Young just gets back in time. He's panting, he's sweating, he's extra scared by his pyro. Mike Tenay suggests that they should tell Scott D'Amore that there's an all-you-can-eat buffet backstage in order to get him to leave the ringside area.
How mean. How uncouth.
It's quite mean. The relentless meanness to Scott D'Amore is very, very unnecessary.
You're allowed to be mean to the heel.
That's true. It's like, you're fat, go away.
Yeah.
I do like the bit that Don West has a very similar physique to Scott D'Amore as well.
Yeah.
Earlier in the show, Matt Bentley took, like, it's the Shawn Michaels spot where he's lying across the turnbuckle. They kick the turnbuckle and he flies up and crotches himself in the ropes. Mm-hmm. And he did not take it very well. And then in this match, Eric Young took it and it looked awesome. They also, like, if you remember, was a Sacrifice last year, there was an 8-man tag where they did the spot where Chase Stevens dropkicked Eric Young and he just took the flare flop off the middle rope to the outside of the floor. And once again, in a meaningless mid-card match, for the second time, Eric Young has just decided to do that spot. I don't understand why. It's just like, Eric, this is a throwaway mid-card tag team match. What are you doing?
Yeah, but like, what's the spot you remember from the match, I guess?
That's true. That's the only thing I remember about this match, other than D'Amore distracts the ref as EY breaks the hockey stick over Andy Douglas's head and Team Canada pick up the win.
A good break.
So Eric Young had a major scare after surgery to remove polyps from his vocal cords on March 7th in Nashville, which is the reason if you're ever wondering why Eric Young sounds like that.
I was kind of curious.
Yeah, he has polyps on his vocal cords that he has to get removed every so often so that he can talk. But he had some problems here because he had a problem with the anesthesia used in surgery and at one point couldn't be revived and his heart stopped beating for several minutes.
Imagine, like, being him and having to go in again to do it the next time.
Yeah, you would be quite scared, wouldn't you?
Like, anesthesia is great.
Also, he wrestled 5 days after this.
Yeah.
When they were able to bring him to, he had an irregular heartbeat, but he was able to get out of hospital a day later and given the green light to wrestle on the pay-per-view where you wouldn't even know anything was wrong other than his voice was a little weaker than usual. So yeah, he took that dopey bump of Chase Stevens after having that major health scare. So later in the show, JB is backstage with Alex Shelley and Eric Young. They continue to be on the hunt for Sting, and they seem to have gotten intel that Sting has gone to the bathroom.
My God.
Eric Young does this, like, big forward roll, this, like, big diving forward roll that you would see in a video game.
And Shelley looks, like, impressed.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's stealthy. They step into the bathroom and they find a bat and demand that Sting come out. AJ Styles comes out instead. EY is like, is Sting in there? And AJ's like, no.
He's like, with me?
Yeah, I would never be gay in a man with a bathroom. You're gay. You're gay with your man in the bathroom. I think that is like the literal implication.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're making the joke, but that is kind of literally what happens is Adrian goes, yeah, you two being gay in here?
Yeah, it's like, what are you two doing in a bathroom together, huh?
Like, broke back bathroom.
got him. This was the segment where you just started cackling because it's extremely silly.
Gay in the bath, am I right?
JB has Jarrett Abyss and AMW. EY comes in, says he can't find Sting, and Jarrett's like, it doesn't matter. Sting, come on down to the ring. We're facing Rhino, Ron Killings, and Team 3D in an 8-man tag team match next.
And they have kind of a wild little brawl.
And then a boring match.
And then a boring match after it.
Because if you remember, they did a version of this back at Genesis without Abyss and... Actually, without Abyss and Killings. It was Jarrett and AMW against Rhino and Team 3D, where they did this big building-wide brawl, and it was actually a good amount of fun. And, like, that's what they started doing here. Like, they started doing the big building-wide brawl. They were fighting each other. It was good fun. There was good energy to it. And then they settled into a regular 8-man tag team match where they got the heat on Rhino for, like, 30 minutes. You could have just done wild brawls and thrown each other through tables and everyone would have a good time. They do the waz up on Jarrett and Gail at the same time. Jackie assists the Gail one. So will she get in trouble? Will they reveal her tape for that?
I mean, I'm invested in finding out.
Devon goes to do the get the tables push on Jackie, but then is like, oh no, she has boobs. I can't touch her boobs. It's a lot of different get the tables bits this month.
Too many.
Arguably none of them good.
The other good one is Bully being like, oh.
AMW go to handcuff Truth to the ropes, but Truth turns it around and handcuffs Harris instead. Truth goes the pin storm with the axe kick, but Jarrett pulls the referee out. Jarrett then just beats Truth with the stroke. So we did all those Truth videos. We did like the refocus on Truth. It's like everything's going on with Ron Killings, and Jarrett just beats him again.
Cool.
Because he took the fall in the tag title match as well, like because Rhino was brawled out of the building with Abyss, so AMW even pinned Truth there. So it's just like, what are you doing? You could have pinned anybody else in this match. Could have pinned Rhino, you could have pinned Devon, you could have pinned Bully.
I would have just pinned one of Team 3D. They have an out of it being an 8-man tag.
Yeah, like there's no reason you couldn't have pinned any of the other men other than the guy you kind of refocused a little bit of push on this month.
Maybe they did the push because they knew they were going to have him get pinned.
That's true. And like it's the classic thing where like they gave him a visual pin on Storm before he got pinned. So it's like the classic thing where like we know well enough that we shouldn't be beating him like this, that we give him a visual pin, but we don't then just take the next step and say we shouldn't beat him.
Yeah.
It's really stupid. So Jarrett hangs around after the match and demands to see Steve Borden. He gives Sting until the count of 10 to come out, and after a very long difference between the 9 and 10 count, he eventually does not come out.
It's a great bit because, like, they always come out.
Yeah, he's like, I'll give you till 9. He's lying in the ring, he gets the 9, and then he does like a whole 30-second speech before he gets the 10. Jarrett says that he has been proved right, he's won the war, Sting is a quitter, and he's coming for the winner of Monty versus Christian.
And I went, no!
Apparently Christian, the Dudleys, and Rhino have formed a bit of a clique in TNA. They tend to dress apart from the rest of the wrestlers, but when around everyone else, they are friendly and fit in well.
They have friends.
And
that's negative.
So after the Christian Cage Monty Brown main event, which we'll talk about when we talk about Christian and Monty, Planet Jarrett come out, they attack Christian, they handcuff Christian to the ropes. Rhino tries to make the save but gets cut off. I don't think 3D tried to make the save. They're like, fuck it, we're done.
They're like, Ron just took the pin, so we need to that's our reason not to be here.
Yeah.
Even though Team T3 taking the loss would actually give them a reason not to be here.
Yeah, you could have done something where they were actually taken out, but nope, it's only Rhino who tries to save Christian, and everyone else is like, fuck it, I don't care anymore, we lost tonight.
Well, clearly Christian and the Dudleys haven't formed much of a clique backstage.
So when the Christian is handcuffed to the ropes and they start taking their turns whipping him with a belt before Steve Borden shows up.
Not Sting. It's Steve.
He's wearing like a Nike exercise shirt and just some pants, no face paint, no, not even glasses. It's just Steve Borden showing up to kick some ass.
And it's so weird.
It kind of rocks because he is absolutely running wild on everybody as Steve Borden.
He's doing a Sting comeback.
It is a Steve comeback.
Steve. It feels immoral. It feels unnatural.
Crowd go absolutely apeshit as Sting runs wild on Planet Jarrett. He gets the belt, he whips Jarrett himself, he locks him in the Scorpion Deathlock. Before Jarrett's ace up his sleeve, Scott Steiner makes his TNA debut.
Holla if you mother effing him.
Steiner hits Sting with a belly-to-belly. The crowd then chant for Goldberg. Steiner tees up Sting for each of Planet Jarrett to take a cheap shot at him. Steiner then locks Sting in the Steiner recliner as Jarrett like scoots in on his butt, because Sting is in like a crouched position. So Jarrett on his butt hits Sting with a guitar while he's trapped in the Steiner recliner, as Planet Jarrett and Scott Steiner stand tall and Steiner's siren theme plays as the show goes off the air.
One like fun thing that I noted during this was that Steiner makes sure to give all of like the younger members of Planet Jarrett a hit and a bit of shine. Which I think, like, I don't know if I ever necessarily think of Steiner as someone who is selfish, but I don't ever think of him as someone who isn't. And to see that was like, I was like, oh, all right, go on, good work, Scott.
Yeah, it is one of those things where it's just like, this could have been all about Scott Steiner, but they did nicely incorporate the other Planet Jarrett guys so that as I said, they can all get a little moment in Scott Steiner's big debut.
Yeah, it was just, I thought it was very interesting.
Not everyone in TNA management believed it was wise to bring in Steiner, but the only opinion that really counts is Jeff Jarrett's, and he is a longtime friend, despite some fallings out in recent years.
Fuck it. We had Scott Steiner and Abyss in there. RDX!
Yeah, it's nearly all of RDX. Sanjay's backstage. They should have got him out there.
RDX, truly the greatest stable of all time.
It was at this moment that the timeline began moving inward.
The fuse was lit.
Toward Scott Steiner starting a riot in India, yes.
Yep.
But yeah, Steiner's cool, and like Steiner and TNA turns out to be cool for very many reasons, so thumbs up.
We've got many wonderful moments to come. There's a certain promo. There's a certain whole episode. There's a certain 2-word statement, which is echoed in our brains for the rest of our time.
Mike Tenay and Don West love chatting about Scott D'Amore too.
Yeah.
Dave does note that Steiner hasn't actually currently signed a deal at this point, but he is showing up doing stuff. And also, like, you could do that with Steiner because I don't think he's going to jump to WWE anytime soon at this point in his career. This is my favorite point of Scott Steiner's career, where anytime he does an interview, he's like, that Triple H pussy bitch, let me see him take a drug test right in front of me, huh?
He's not wrong.
He was not wrong indeed. So the NWA World Title Program for Destination X is Christian Cage versus the Alpha Male, Monty Brown. First Impact of the month, Christian opens the show, the new NWA World Champion. He comes out, he does his big celebratory promo, says he's been waiting 12 long years to do this, and raises the title in the air to rapturous applause.
Everyone's just really happy that Jeff Jarrett isn't the champion.
They're delighted to have somebody else hold that belt. He dedicates his win to all the guys who have been held back.
He's like shitty, like, who I was held back promo that every TNA guy needs to do.
Yeah, I was going to say he's the first person to do it, but he's not. D'Lo was, so he's doing the D'Lo Brown tribute promo. Says the fans know what they want and you can't fool the fans. The he's been missing for his career has not been charisma or wrestling ability, it's just been an opportunity. Christian mentions that Monty is the new #1 contender because that's how he rolls. As he said, it's kind of like, it's not a great promo. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not as much a cliche in 2006 as it is now, I guess. So it's not that bad now when he's doing it. But watching it now, it is like, dude, you just won the world title. Can you not make it about WWE being mean to you?
Yeah, I was watching the Mr. Anderson one the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Where his whole promo after winning the world title is, WWE wouldn't put the world title on me. Because I'm too real.
Oh, dear.
Trying to find our Bangkok tweet.
So the closing segment of this show is baffling. JB is with Monty Brown.
Yes.
They're walking down a hallway, and Monty's like, I'm going to confront Christian right now. And he goes into Christian's locker room, and the show goes off the air, and this just goes nowhere.
Yeah, and then the next week they're just like, you weren't in there.
It's such a funny thing to, like, big cliffhanger. Monty Brown goes into Christian's locker room. First segment of next week's Impact. Turns out Christian wasn't in the locker room.
My favorite thing about that too is like, these were filmed on like the same day.
Yeah.
Like, they filmed that and then just didn't do anything with it.
Because yeah, opening segment of the next Impact is Monty Brown squashing Dylan Knight. Not the best Monty squash in the world.
It's fine. Dylan Knight, I was like, who is this man in Mike Quackenbush cosplay?
Maybe it was Mike Quackenbush.
That's his TNA name, Dylan Knight.
Monty won with a pounce. Monty addresses Christian after the match. He said last week he was looking for Christian, but believed he was in the wrong locker room because Liam, he was in the men's locker room. Maybe he should be in the women's locker room. He goes through then the various ways Christian is like a woman. He puts his hands on his hips and blows kisses to other men.
in his entrance because he does like the.
He calls Christian's style of wrestling touch as touch can.
It's a good wordplay.
The name of your finisher is the unprettier, which is womanly.
Yeah. Women are always about getting unprettied.
Famously. Might be the worst promo of Monty's career.
Monty, good promo guy, not a good night.
No.
And then Christian fucking owns him.
So Christian comes out and he's like, you're always talking about the Serengeti. You're always like, oh, Serengeti this, Serengeti that. So let me teach you some geography, Monty Brown. What's the capital of Thailand?
And then I shout out to my one man in the crowd who was like, Bangkok!
He knew immediately. Monty's like, I don't know, Christian. Indulge me with your geography. Then he says, Bangkok, and ball taps him. And then they brawl, and maybe save the entire segment.
Shoutouts to Kenny Omega doing this promo like 20 years later.
Yeah, a tribute to the pinnacle of Monty Brown's career, getting ball tapped by Christian Cage with the hottest 2006 schoolyard joke.
Okay, so we got a response to this on Twitter.
Did we?
From a porn bot.
Oh, okay.
And it really makes me laugh because it's one of those ones that was like, that takes the context of your tweet into it, but then like the AI is so broken that like it doesn't make any sense. And this is the response. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have missed that day in geography class. Last time I checked, it's Bangkok, not Thailand. Winky face. Hashtag friendly disagreement. Hashtag oops.
I saw that tweet, but didn't realize it was a porn bot, and I was actually baffled by it.
Yeah, I could not understand what was being said.
Because I was looking at it, and I was just like, there's a sentence there, and like sentence structure, and it is in response. But then you're like, but it just doesn't make sense. It is like the perfect encapsulation of AI, or the AI as we know it now, in that like it is so close to being like comprehensible, but then it falls at the final hurdle in a way that is completely baffling and makes it utterly useless.
I read it like 10 times. Trying to comprehend what the fuck was trying to be said.
So next episode of Impact, JB has Christian Cage. James Mitchell and Abyss come in and say Christian leapfrogged the line and from Abyss and got a title shot. Mitchell wants a title shot or he'll unleash Doomsday on Christian.
Click.
Monty Brown then attacked Christian from behind. They brawled into the arena and then Monty pounced Christian off the ramp into the guardrail on the floor below, which was a cool spot.
Yeah, it's a good bump, and I like that it, like, for such a big spot, it still works the body part.
Yeah, it sets up the story of the pay-per-view that Christian then has injured ribs because he ate shit on that guardrail in the way that did actually look like it injured his ribs. So good bump by Christian. He didn't like, a lot of people would take that bump a lot safer.
And then they would NXT face it.
Yeah, whereas Christian took that bump rib first onto the rail exactly as he should, because the story is that he will be selling his ribs going into the world title match. And it's a good bump.
Shoutouts to our Twitter just auto-tweeting episode 21, which has the best and most underrated name for any of our podcasts.
Which was it?
Dawn with the Wind.
Oh, Dawn with the Wind. What was the poster for that episode?
It's the Terry Funk post.
Those are scheduled. That's not an auto tweet. But yeah, I was like, we should post our posters more. They should get like a second posting. So it's like I schedule them all to post every day.
Very.
Just to give more eyeballs on those
posters.
posters.
Buy them. I think they can't even buy them.
People should do a thing we don't provide.
Yeah, people should tell us that they would buy them so we know how many to sell.
So go home show, JB has Larry Zbyszko. Christian and Monty can't be in the same building ahead of Destination X, so they will be live via satellite tonight. Hebner will also be the referee for the main event. Then D'Amore came in and started shouting at them, and he was like, hey Larry, something's going on here? And JB was like, what's he talking about? And Larry's like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I was like, I never know what he's fucking talking about.
They're building toward an angle where Larry Zbyszko is going to lose his hair. Dave guesses that it will be to Raven since he's scheduled to return soon, and they were feuding with when Raven left.
Also, Raven lost his hair.
Yes, violently and gruesomely. The story behind this is Zbyszko is getting hair restoration surgery soon, so he's getting his head shaved before surgery. With a true worker as well, though, that it's like, let's incorporate it into story if I'm going to shave my head. They want to do something with it in a comedy vein, since Zbyszko will have a fuller head of hair shortly after it being shaved than he had before.
That's right.
So they do the sit-down interview with Christian and Monty. It's your basic pay-per-view build. There's nothing special to it. The story is like, Dawn is like, the rumor going on around the locker room is you've hurt your ribs, and Christian is like, hell yeah, I've hurt my ribs, but I'm not going to give up that easy.
Yeah, everything else was like kind of cool. This was a filler week.
Yeah, we were talking at the start of the show about how this was a really good TV month, but the Go Home show was very much just like, we have a pay-per-view Sunday, we don't really have much else going on.
We used all of our ideas, fuck.
We ran through all of that in the first 3 weeks, so we just have you sit down, it's a nice little sit down. Monty and Christian, they're talking, they're facing, but not much else going on. Both men have interviews on the pay-per-view, pretty standard stuff. Monty does his I'm gonna win the belt promo. He's about to hit his catchphrase when Larry Zbyszko walks in, and he's just like, there's gonna be a level playing field. Earl Hebner's referee tonight. Shake my hand. Monty slaps his hand away, says he doesn't care, and then hits his catchphrase. And then Christian does this pretty standard I'm a world champion promo, where he does like the Rock pause as well, because the crowd are chanting Christian, so he stops JB and does like the stand there and let the crowd chant Christian a little bit. It's like, oh, look at him go. He's The Rock.
I do think you should only be allowed to do the Rock pause if you've wrestled The Rock.
And Christian has wrestled The Rock, so...
Actually, you should only be allowed to do it if you've beaten The Rock.
Has Christian beaten The Rock? I think Edge and Christian might have beaten The Rock in some tags, but I'm not sure if they've...
Yeah, I will accept a tag win. I want you to put your money down. Do you think Christian Cage has ever beaten The Rock?
I think Edge and Christian have a tag team victory over The Rock. I'm not sure who pinned who, but I think they have beaten The Rock in a tag team match.
Alright, we're gonna find out right now. Oh my god. Cage match kept in the whole enter text thing. That was weird. Alright. No, not the Rock and Raven faction.
That's the best tag team.
Alright. They have wrestled 17 times. Can Shamrock, the Big Boss Man, and The Rock defeat Christian, Edge, and Gangrel? WWF World Heavyweight Title No. 1 contendership match. 2-on-1 handicap match. The Rock defeats Christian, Edge.
Damn.
6-man tag. The Rock defeats Christian, Edge, and Chris Benoit.
Come on.
Christian, Chris Benoit, and Edge defeat the APA and The Rock.
There we go. Well done, Christian. You could do The Rock pause.
Christian and Edge defeat The Rocky Undertaker.
Yeah. That's a good win.
I want to see, have they ever had a... He did! Christian lost in 5 minutes.
It's probably a good match.
5 minutes in Canada for the WCW title.
Of course.
That's a weird match to look at on paper. Both men wrestling in 2024.
That's wild, isn't it?
That was their only singles match. Was that
They should have another.
TV match.
The Rock should go to
run
AEW
it back.
and they should have another.
Run it back on Forbidden Door.
The Forbiddenest Door.
Oh, Christian Cage can cut some hella your family's dead promos about The Rock.
Okay.
What? That's his whole thing.
You were very excited about the idea, though.
Oh, we're gonna act like no, the crowd doesn't pop huge every time Christian says someone's family's dead?
It's just the degeneracy of American culture, actually.
Yeah, but it's bad when Candace does it.
Christian talks about his injured ribs, talks about how he gets his ass kicked all the time, mentions how he's gotten his ass kicked twice today already. I'm like, what's going on with your day, Christian?
Who did you get your ass kicked? Was it The Rock?
Yeah, The Rock showed up to kick his ass. It's like, you better not do the Rock pause tonight. That's my thing.
Yeah, I saw you last week, motherfucker.
Says, this isn't the Serengeti, this is the Peep Zone, you silly bitch.
One of his catchphrases should just be, you silly bitch.
He did do you silly bastard a few weeks ago to Jeff Jarrett, so he's not gendered, he's not specific to a gendered insult. He's willing to change up the gendered insult.
Gender fluid insults from Christian Cage. He may be the patriarchy, but he's not the patriarch.
Christian says Monty's record of NWA world title matches will end the same way as his record in Super Bowl games. Winless.
That was really funny. Sorry, just to go back to like the Go Home show for a minute, where Christian was like, "You are a good athlete," and then Monty starts to correct him. He's like, "No, you are a good athlete. I'm sorry." Like he did that twice, where he's like, he went too far in one direction. He's like, "No, I'm burying the guy. I have to reel it back in a little."
Yeah, and Monty was like, "No, I am a good athlete." He was like, "No, I will take that back. You are a good athlete." It was very funny.
Like he even like admitted to being wrong. He's like, "Yes, you're right."
Babyface immediately backed down.
You silly bitch.
So this world title match, Monty and Christian, it's fine.
It's not bad. It's not good either.
Because they have the basic structure of it, which is Christian's ribs are hurt. So Monty is working over the taped ribs for the entire match, doing a bunch of power moves on the taped ribs, as Christian works from underneath for most of it. And that's fine. It's a decent, solid structure. If you're going to do that, the match is too long for it.
And not exciting.
Yeah, I think this is like 18 minutes or something like that. It is really long. And like, if you're going to do just a standard he's working over the ribs match, you got to cut that thing down to like 13. But yeah, like the matches, Monty does power moves on the ribs, and then Christian just kind of comes back and wins with the unprettier. That's basically it. There's not much more to say about it. It's fine. It's mechanically decent. It's not very exciting. There is a note from the Torch. Monty Brown may be held back within TNA because his in-ring skills are not progressing at the pace everyone would like. The problem for Brown is that he has a successful personal training business in which he works 5 days a week, earning well into 6 figures annually.
Stop wrestling! What are you doing?
He wants to be a star.
God damn.
To be fair, he actually does. That was like the thing, that like he grew up a wrestling fan, not a football fan. So like he's using his football success to try and become a wrestling success.
Yeah, fair play. He's gonna get signed to WWE in like 3 months. So.
There are some within TNA who feel Brown should be working harder to get weekend bookings that don't interfere with his other job, not because he needs the money, but because he needs the experience. Even working 8 times a month might not be enough for him to get to the point where he needs to be as a top-level worker, but it's better than 3 times per month he's currently working some of those shorter squash matches in which he is protected.
Well, hey TNA management, you want to take fucking cuts of people's indie dates, why don't you organize them?
I had not a realization, because I think I had this realization like a year ago, but it was reinforced this month for me that Monty Brown is like the world's most natural babyface.
Yeah.
As this big guy who does entertaining promos and has this insane, cool, explosive moveset that you're like, everything about him screams, I should be a babyface. Like, Bill Goldberg as a heel would have been weird as shit. Like, and Monty is probably the closest comparison you can make. It's like big, explosive, dynamic, charismatic. It's like, he should be a babyface. Like, his best time in this company was like the 3 or 4 months where he was a babyface, leading into the Jarrett match, and he had that awesome squash against Team Canada. Like, his squash matches are babyface matches. Like, it's crazy. And he spent nearly the entirety of his entire career as a heel, and it just makes me think about how if they had actually correctly pegged this dude as a babyface star that he should be, we might be much better off.
Somehow I feel like they never would have committed still.
Well, he always would have been stuck behind Jarrett. That's the problem. That, like, no matter what, Jarrett's ego is too big to get out of the way for Monty Brown. Like, that's the problem. Ultimately in TNA, like, Jarrett would not let Monty in front of him because he was probably threatened by Monty, frankly. But I don't know, like, he just should have been a babyface. He's super cool. He's just too cool to be a heel.
Honestly, the real thing is they should have had like another hour.
Yeah.
Another year. Sorry.
Yeah, and like, when you look at the structure of this match, if you do have worries about Monty's experience levels, like, if he's working as a babyface, he doesn't need the responsibility of carrying a match like this. He can work from underneath, he can sell. Like, his best matches were as a babyface because of that. That, like, you could play into his strengths more because he could just sell and then come back with his big explosive power stuff, which leads better into what he can do well, as opposed to a match like this where he needs to control the majority of the match, which he's not interesting enough to do. It's like everything about him would be better off if he was a babyface, and he spent his entire career as a heel.
Yeah, just a guy who like got miscast at every opportunity, really.
Yeah, and then just left the business before he could right the ship. It is a shame because we're entering the Monty endgame now. We only have about 4 months left of Monty, which is a shame.
God, remember when for Monty's gonna be crazy.
Oh, it's gonna make me sad.
I actually have to research.
The other kind of heavyweight program this month is Lance Hoyt versus Matt Bentley.
Alright, tell me about all the things that happened on Explosion, Garrett.
Yeah, so the March 4th episode of Impact, JB has Matt Bentley and Tracy. Bentley talks about how he apparently attacked Lance Hoyt in Explosion. That's the first we heard about it.
They were breaking up a team and friendship?
They apparently, they were buddies on Explosion. I don't know. I just saw him super kick him. That's all I know. He super kicked him on Explosion.
They just announced that Thunderbolt Patterson is going into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Sure. What a weird class that is this year.
This is the Triple H class. He took over and he started putting real wrestling people in the Hall of Fame.
His sicko childhood heroes, and then Muhammad Ali.
Shout outs to the one guy who responded to that with, who are these people? I don't know who. I've never heard of them before.
You'll get a video package. It'll be fine. So Bentley is talking about how he's a maverick now. He's Maverick Matt Bentley, or just Maverick Matt, as it seems to be. There's inconsistencies.
Which is awful.
Yeah, because his nameplate still comes up as Matt Bentley, but he's called Maverick Matt on commentary, so they can't make up their mind about whether he's Maverick Matt or Matt Bentley.
Yeah.
Lance Hoyt faces Kenny King on the show. They showed him super kicking Hoyt on Explosion, so they actually do at least use the Explosion footage, which is maybe the first time in the history of this company that they've shown us something that's happened on Explosion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It might have happened once or twice in the Asylum days.
I remember earlier on, maybe we saw, Asylum stuff. We definitely saw some stuff, but first time it's on the Impact. And it's for this Matt Bentley, Lance Hoyt feud.
There's just so much going on TV this month that you can't find time on Impact for the Lance Hoyt, Matt Bentley stuff. You gotta use Explosion.
Yeah.
It is kind of wild that this is like one of the very, very few times, because Explosion has existed since like, November 2002, something like that? Maybe even a little bit earlier. So that's 4 years that they still haven't, 3.5, that they still haven't brought stuff forward from Explosion, but like they're finally using it, and they will stop doing that. It is a once-off. It's not the case that like Explosion is a meaningful show with angles from here on out, but it is funny. Lance and Bentley will face at Destination X. Kenny starts with like an awesome springboard clothesline, just flies out at Lance Hoyt, but it's kind of interesting that like the crowd kind of boo Hoyt here.
And he's really pants. I don't know. He was kind of working like a heel because he was supposed to be like pissed off. So maybe like they just thought he was a heel because he was being mad, and no one was. Then like 3 of them remembered what happened in Explosion.
And like Kenny King is like this plucky, exciting babyface who he is beating up. So, though is Kenny King a babyface? I'm not sure.
He is a jobber.
But there is no way to know. But he does do cool springboards, so that makes him inherently likable.
Yeah, so I don't know.
He did get cheered at the pay-per-view again, so they did correct. But I was like, is Hoytomania finally over? Have they turned on him?
Hollywood Hoyt.
Oh, God. Starts wearing feather boas, doing incomprehensible promos. Hoyt wins with a Texas Tower Bomb. A note, Hoyt's push was slowed. I would argue he never had one. But due to earning a rep for being impatient with his push and complaining too much. The feeling was the crowd pops he was getting in Orlando were going to his head.
My God, man thought he was too big of a star.
I like the way the subtext to that is the man was getting over and was like, guys, I'm getting over, let's do something with me. And it's like, this fucker, the ego on this guy. Never get over in the wrestling business. It's the worst thing that can ever happen to you. It's literally a whole business about getting over, and people will just relentlessly hold it against you.
Because they want to be the ones who get it.
Nothing else building toward this. We had a pay-per-view match. Tell me all about Lance Hoyt versus Matt Bentley on the pay-per-view, Liam.
They had a match. They were doing some stuff. And then Eric Young happened.
Eric Young dropped some flyers.
And then Tracy picked up a flyer and was like, Matt, look at this flyer. And then Matt, deservedly so, was like, who gives a fuck? Why are you showing me this? Turns around, eats a big boot, loses, kicks out on 3, clearly knew how stupid this finish was.
Yeah.
The end.
There you go. That's Lance Hoyt versus Matt Bentley. The main X Division feud this month is, for the X Division title, Styles, Daniels, Joe in Ultimate X.
Ooh.
So first impact of the pay-per-view cycle, JB has Joe and Larry in his office. Larry with some tremendous shirts this month. Looks like he walked straight in from golfing to do his TNA managing.
Which he probably has.
He probably did, yeah. Larry has a major announcement. TNA management is very proud of Joe's achievements. However, he's never been in an Ultimate X match. So Larry books that for Destination X. It is Styles, Daniels, Joe in Ultimate X to decide their feud for good. Joe's mad at him being underestimated because he's like, you don't think I can do that. You think I can't succeed in Ultimate X. And he's like, I don't like you playing stunts like this. They call you Living Legend, right? We might just be calling you Legend from now on.
Because Joe is going to kill him.
He is going to commit a murder on Larry Zbyszko.
That's the chant.
Right after that match, Daniels faces Austin Aries. As Austin Aries is making his entrance, he looks right down the camera and says, "Sexy time, baby." Daniels is about to go for the Angel's Wings, and he says, no, instead I'm going to go for the Coquina Clutch, which causes Joe to run out.
I was so pissed because I was like, fuck yeah, Daniels Aries.
They get no time as well.
I was like, I was excited. I wanted to see Daniels and Aries.
It's not even like they work a nice little 7-minute match and then Joe does the run-in. Like, they go to that finish in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Daniels goes to BME Joe, but Joe places the X Division title on his chest, which blocks the BME because Daniels lands on it and hurts himself.
Yes.
So is it the case that if the belt is face down on Joe's chest, it would hurt Joe? But because it was face up, it hurts Daniels?
Yes, but as we know, Liam Laura's my backyard finish was to have it face up so I would feel it.
What?
I've talked about this on the podcast before.
Have you?
Yes, when I used to do my trampoline fed, right? My finish was the frog splash.
Yeah.
But I would drag both belts on top of the pillow at the time, was a child, and I would face the two belts up so I could feel them more, so it would feel like a big move.
You're like a regular Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
So you do like the big come up selling the ribs.
Yeah, I would do the flip over.
Good stuff. Joe then looks the muscle buster Daniels onto a chair, but AJ makes the save and nails Joe right in the skull with a chair, like right in the skull with a chair. It's amazing how like we don't do that anymore. But back in 2006, well, actually sometimes we do. We went through a period of not doing that anymore, and then we have come back into doing it a little more often. That man hit that man right in the skull with the chair.
I like hitting people in the skulls with chairs.
Well,
it's not my body.
You don't have to deal with the concussion. You're not wrong. Styles looks at Daniels and says, "This wasn't for you," throws the chair down and stands tall with the X Division title. We also get a feature immediately after that about Ultimate X, all the high spots, all the history of the match. They have had enough Ultimate X's at this point that they can put together a pretty good Ultimate X feature. They're like, ooh, look at all our cool moves. February 25th Impact, AJ Styles faces Roderick Strong.
Roderick Strong and AJ Styles, they see it on paper, you're like, ooh.
And at least, unlike the Daniels Aries match,
they got some time.
Yeah, they got a little bit of time. They got to have a real match. They're not going out there and having like a 4-star match, but they're having like a tidy little 6-minute TV match.
It's not quite the like I'm working to get you a job pace either.
No. Daniels on commentary points out that the last time he and AJ were in Ultimate X together, Daniels took the X Division title from him.
You could do this again.
He then started talking about how he has a special training technique for Ultimate X, which I did not see in the match itself. He's like, you'll have to wait till Destination X to see what it is, and I guess we'll never know.
Well, he said he used it to win last time, and he's going to use it to win this.
And he did win both times, so whatever he did, it worked. In a lovely little spot, AJ was going for a sunset flip, and Strong just sidestepped him and then caught him in a backbreaker. Like, Styles just landed back first on his knee. It's like, that's so cool. Styles popped Strong into a powerbomb, followed with the Styles Clash for the win. And that's the first time I noted that got a replay, but it was not the Morphoplex move of the night. Joe beat Shark Boy later on that show. Don informs us that the X Division is not defined by weight limits, Liam. Have you heard this? It's defined by no limits.
What? Since when?
It's a new concept they're trying to do in this 2006 X Division.
I like it. They should emphasize.
Nice little competitive squash. I like the way Shark Boy like tapped out in the Coquina clutch, because it did look like he was actually being choked out.
Yeah.
There was like a super labored, like I'm on the verge of passing out kind of tapping out thing he did that looked really good. Main event of the March 4th Impact. Samoa Joe and Shannon Moore faced AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels.
Joe and Punk versus Daniels and Styles.
That is what the graphic said before this match. The funny thing is, earlier on the show, there was a graphic that said Joe and Prince of Punk. And then right before this match, they're like, let's shorten it. It's Joe and Punk versus AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels.
That'll get the dirt sheets.
But a perfectly fine match. The interesting part of this is that the Ultimate X structure was up for this match so that they could preview it, I guess. You could look at it and be like, look, it's Ultimate X. So Joe looked like ominously at the Ultimate X structure as he was doing his entrance. They mentioned that Joe was on the cover of the new Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which TNA put it over as a great color cover shot of Samoa Joe. Mike TNA is such an old man that he is putting over the color photography on this month's Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Hey, it's still impressive, all right?
Joe blind tags himself in as Daniels is going for the Angel's Wings and then just wins with a lariat. Like a single lariat beats Daniels. It's a good looking lariat, to be fair. It's Samoa Joe, but he does just win with a lariat.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta win with a really great lariat.
Styles then takes Joe's X Division title, hangs it from the cables, and then Styles and Daniels are just standing in the ring together being like, go get it. Go get it. It's right there. You can go get it.
And he's like, I can't. And they're like, why?
Which is like it's a fun hook for like Ultimate X, because like obviously Joe is out of place in that match, and that's the story.
Why is he out of place, Garrett?
Because he is large. There's a word for
Scott Steiner say about him?
We won't know for another 3 years. Actually, no, we will. They feud in Slammiversary, and he doesn't quite go he's fat, but he does do multiple promos about how he is in much better shape than Samoa Joe.
Good bits.
TNA wants to retain Shannon Moore, but won't begrudge if he leaves because WWE offer him a better deal. If he signs with WWE, he's leaving on good terms, having jobs on the way out. Has he? One TNA veteran, though, predicts he'll be promised the world just like Matt Hardy was, just to get him to sign. Then he'll be as frustrated as he was the last time and miserable there like everybody else.
Sounds pretty accurate in 2024.
Jonah Rock's not at all tweeting through that at the moment.
Listen, have the faith in oneself, but come on.
Also, I would have heat with Shannon Moore if he left, personally.
Why?
Because, like, he hasn't jobbed on the way out. Like, he didn't get pinned here. He was on the winning side of this tag. There was the 8-man tag he was in on the Go Home show where David Young got pinned. He got to pin AJ Styles and he won on the pre-show. He hasn't jobbed on the way out. If anything, he's been overly protected for a dude who might be immediately leaving. Go Home Show had a little feature with new comments from Styles, Daniels, and Joe, where the Styles was like sitting on top of the Ultimate X, and Joe was like standing on the truss. Made for some cool visuals. Story driving home with Styles being like, "This is my match. This is Ultimate X. This is our environment. And you're stepping into our world here. So you might." And Daniels does like a promo on, I think it's the pay-per-view, where he's like, or maybe it's AJ here, where it's like, you are good in the ring, you are good outside the ring, but this match takes place above the ring, and that is not your domain. That is ours.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
It gives him a good out. Too.
Yeah, like that's the whole idea. There is some like criticism. It's like, why would you put Joe in Ultimate X? It's not his strong point. It's like, that's the story, you idiots.
Yeah, and also like, I don't know, you think you're gonna have him for a long time, you know? You know, like, you're allowed to do it doesn't need to be a straight singles match every month.
So that brings us to the pay-per-view where JB, before the Ultimate X, has Samoa Joe, and he goes to compare Joe's streak to Bill Goldberg, which Joe abruptly cuts off and says, it's not about who's next, but who's left.
Good line.
Yeah.
Also acknowledging, Goldberg on TV now.
They're even at the point of like actively name dropping Goldberg and teasing him specifically for a match with Joe, which is probably what you would do. The idea of like unbeaten streak versus guy who famously had unbeaten streak.
But it's like, you're gonna have him beat Joe.
Well, they brought in Kurt and had him beat Joe. It's the same thing, really.
Yeah, but Kurt's good.
You one of those people who doesn't pretend that Bill Goldberg's the best wrestler to ever exist?
I mean, I've seen about 40, and they were all WWE.
Oh no, you've seen the worst of them then. But some of the modern ones are really like the Lesnar match at WrestleMania is really
they're fun. Yeah, the Lesnar one's amazing.
Goldberg for me is a person that people have overcorrected on, where the consensus opinion used to be that he was bad, which is wrong, and now the consensus opinion that he is great, which is also a bit wrong, and he lies somewhere in the middle.
He's a vibes guy.
Yeah, in the right environment, he can be amazing and the best. But like the idea that he's like this great pro wrestler is just not true.
Is he an Observer Hall of Famer, Garrett? I know you hate the Observer Hall of Fame, but is he a Hall of Fame?
I don't care. I
just fucking participate.
Even you qualifying that as like, I know you hate it, my still instinctive reaction is like, I don't care.
Participate.
I'm gonna say yes, sure, give it to him.
Alright.
I'd probably say no, his run's not long enough. But still, he was a big star, sure, give it to him. Ultimate X for the X Division Championship. Christopher Daniels defeats AJ Styles and Samoa Joe to become champion once again. So Joe only goes to climb the cables once.
Good bit.
He looks tremendously uncomfortable. He does a thing where like his feet don't really leave the turnbuckle very much. Like he's desperately trying to still use the turnbuckle to keep his base. And then the second he tries to go out, he just falls to the mat. And I'm not sure he was meant to, because I think they're setting up a spot where he was meant to fall on Styles, because Styles is like lying below him a little further out. So I think they were meant to do a spot where Joe climbed out a little and then Daniels pulled him down onto Styles. But I think he fell before that. So
so my favorite part of this match is how we are beginning like the formation of the Daniels Styles team, and they are adapting and learning that they are a good tag team by realizing that the only way they can keep this guy down is to work as a team against him. And that's some like good development between these two as we head into the era of them teaming.
Because like the story coming out of the last pay-per-view, and even like this month, even when Styles made the save for Daniels earlier in the month and said it's not for you, is like they're still not on the same page. But you're right, they do a really good job of like showing how they should be a good team together through wrestling. God forbid a story told through wrestling, as opposed to like doing like a big promo or something. It's just like, oh, they did a high-low on Joe, they did a double team muscle buster on Joe. Oh, look, they're actually really good together, aren't they? Huh?
Yeah.
It is a really nice and nuanced spot, or a way to develop that story, I guess. There's also a great spot where Joe goes for the Ole kick on the floor and AJ comes fucking flying off the apron out of nowhere at the forearm. Ruled. Looked so good. Joe grabs a chair and smashes AJ off the cables with it. Daniels then kicks that chair into Joe's head, which gives him the window to grab the belt and win, as Styles and Daniels shake hands after the match, and Joe starts like tossing the ring steps at ringside.
It is a very good way to belt off Joe. And of course, they're very quick, like, he didn't get pinned!
Yeah, it's like, undefeated still. No pin. He's still good. The match was scheduled to last around 16 minutes total, but they cut a few minutes of planned spots due to leading to the finish due to a Samoa Joe eye injury. Joe scratched his cornea the night before and irritated it during the match when the sweat and body oil got in his eye during a dive outside of the ring onto both Styles and Daniels. Joe lost his equilibrium and was in pain, communicating such to Daniels at one point in the match, and therefore was unable to do some planned spots and had to go to the finish early. He might have also realized due to sweat on the cables and his weight, he might not have been able to execute some of the planned spots. There was some second guessing of whether it was smart to put Joe in that style match to begin with, since it doesn't play to his strengths, and instead put him in a position to look weak. It would be like putting Hulk Hogan in a ladder match, says one veteran headliner. Sources say Joe wasn't particularly comfortable with the format of the match, but saw it as a challenge. He acknowledged that Ultimate X is considered the signature match to climax a feud involving X Division wrestlers.
It's nice to have an Ultimate X that feels important.
Yeah, like for the most of the history of that stipulation, both before this and after this, it is just we are doing an Ultimate X so we can do an Ultimate X. We think it's cool to do an Ultimate X on the show, so we're doing an Ultimate X. As opposed to this, which is like the culmination of arguably over a year-long feud now, given the first Styles Daniels match was February 2005. So like this is like between the three of them the culmination of 13 months. So it makes sense for them to go into Ultimate X as a big feud-ending rivalry, as opposed to just throwing it out for no reason.
Yeah.
And like I disagree with the idea that it's like, oh, you put Joe in a position to look weak because they told a story about it. Was the story of the match. You're getting worked by the story. Bunch of marks. There is some other like small stuff in the X division. So the story this month is that we are building toward the World X Cup coming up in April, May. So after lockdown, we get the World X Cup coming up. So there's some X division stuff running through the month.
It looks like a spicy World X Cup too.
Yeah, we have some cool people potentially being in it.
And some cool people that should have been in it.
So, like, first impact of the month, we do get a Jay Lethal versus Shannon Moore versus Roderick Strong match to earn a spot on Team USA in the World X Cup.
So, watching this, I was like, man, Jay Lethal already feels like above jobber status. And I mean that more than just he is winning a match. Like, he came out and something about the way it was shot, that just how he looked, the confidence on it, like he looked like a signed member of the roster progressing in a way that like a Roderick Strong or an Austin Aries don't quite yet. Aries feels a little bit more than Strong. But yeah, I just noticed it and I was watching Lethal and I was like, wow, this guy looks like he's taken a step up.
Yeah, he feels like he's taken to TV a lot faster than, as you mentioned, particularly like Strong, who like has good matches but does not feel like a guy who pops on TV in the same way Lethal has in Lethal's first few performances.
Yeah. And it just, I don't know, something about him, he looked TV ready more than you would expect for someone of his career.
I do appreciate how, like, they're also, like, committing to that, you know? They're not like, oh, Jay Lethal's just a job guy. Jay Lethal's just a guy who we put in enhancement matches to lose the stars. They kind of identify pretty quickly that Jay Lethal is a guy who has a little bit of upside, who looks good on TV, who's, like, explosive, who's, like, dynamic. Fair enough, Samoa Joe did everything within his power to make sure that he actually looked like that in their first match. But, like, Jarrett gave him a ton when Jarrett randomly wrestled on TV too. So like they do even like reinforce in this match that like Lethal beat PD, Shelley and Bentley against all odds. So they drive home that Lethal is not just like a guy who is losing on TV. They're like, oh, like he won at the pay-per-view. Lethal has like some forward momentum going. In this match, Moore leg lariated Lethal into a strong German, which is a cool spot. Moore elevated Lethal over the turnbuckle into a Rana on Strong on the other side, which is also a cool spot. Moore followed with a moonsault to the floor, and Lethal pinned Strong with a full Nelson suplex, a dragon suplex if you will. Good match, probably the best TV match of the month for me.
Yeah, Lethal getting the win on Shannon Moore would have been really nice if the guy's leaving.
Oh, Shannon Moore is doing all these jobs on the way out, Liam. Have you not heard?
I mean, he did lose the match.
He has lost some matches. He was pinned in none of them.
Yeah.
There's talk of bringing Jeff Hardy back for the return to primetime. Shannon Moore is a good friend of Hardy, so TNA management may put Shannon Moore in charge of Hardy to ensure he shows up. They don't in the end, but once again, they are still being like, Jeff Hardy? Jeff Hardy?
Yeah, but they're also being like, Russo?
So yeah, Jay Lethal is on Team USA in the World X Cup.
I'm excited for it.
March 11th Impact, there is another qualifying match for not the World X Cup, in fact. Actually, no, it is. It's both a spot on Team USA or Team TNA, and also a spot in the X Division Showcase at Destination X. So Mike Tenay mentions that there is an X Division Showcase at the pay-per-view that is currently meant to feature Puma, Durango Kid, and Petey Williams. This is a little World X Cup preview. Durango Kid is not in the match because apparently they kept calling CMLL being like, hey, what's the deal? And they stopped answering. So
something that CMLL seems to be doing a lot.
they thought they had a deal more or less done with CMLL to be like, you know, we're doing some stuff going forward. You'll have a team in the World X Cup. We'll be bringing some of your guys in. And that just didn't happen. They just apparently stopped answering the phone. So it went back to AAA, as it always does.
I was going to say, the famed idea of wanting CMLL but being stuck with AAA.
Larry Z, for some reason, was watching this match on from the ramp. Slick Johnson ran out to talk to him about something, and Larry's like, go away, and left.
I assume Larry watches every match.
From the
and
ramp.
This one was for a spot on Team TNA, so that is his team.
He's extra invested in who's making it.
Yeah, because his team, that's the team representing his company against the other teams from around the world.
I kind of love Shelley just casually breaking out a tombstone pile driver in this match. Just like, I'm just going to drop this. Because, like, every time, while Undertaker was an active wrestler in particular, people were so, like, protective of that move. It's like, that's Undertaker's move. Alex, so other people shouldn't be doing Undertaker's move. And Alex Shelley just, like, doing it for a near fall in this X Division 3-way on TV. Sabin pins Shelley with the Cradle Shock to earn a spot on Team TNA and also earn a place in the X Division Showcase that does actually still end up featuring Sanjay Dutt.
There you go. He earned his spot via not being pinned.
That's true.
I like that Shelley's all over these shows, but barely winning.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like, there's the difference in wrestling between being pushed and being featured. Like, people generally can't tell the difference. Like, Shelley is not currently being pushed, but he is being pretty heavily featured. And it's better off for him because he's been featured in ways that play to his strengths, particularly in the paparazzi production stuff. But yeah, it's always interesting to draw that distinction. Brings us to the pay-per-view. Opening match was Alex Shelley versus Jay Lethal.
It was good.
And Alex Shelley won, so eat your hat, sir.
Which is why it's really good.
I like Alex Shelley's little, like, Gatling gun taunt he does with the camera tripod as he does his entrance.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's a good. He's very good. He's a very good pro wrestler. Some would say.
The crowd have already, like, taken to Lethal, like, they're super interested in him. So like the crowd are very into him in this match. So it's fun to see. Like, they again, to add to, not only is he looking TV ready, not only is he being pushed a little bit, but like he is getting good crowd responses as well. It's all working out for Jay Lethal here at the start.
Yeah, he's moving on up.
For a lot of this pay-per-view, nearly all of it, you can hear the faint sound of the Spanish announcing underneath it.
Yeah, I think that's LAX's influence.
I wonder if it's Conan, because it's Conan and I think Armando Quintero is the Spanish dance team at the moment. It's definitely Conan anyway. Maybe Woody Jack. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, we saw Conan in the Killings match, so...
Oh yeah, they brawled up to him, yeah. So maybe Conan is just so loud that you can just hear him.
But you also hear, like, crowd noise, too. It's like the whole audio is just connected.
Yeah, something that's bleeding through here. But, yeah, so even, like, during pre-tapes and everything, you could hear the Spanish announcers, like, translating the pre-tape in real time.
Yeah, I was wondering why were they talking so much during this pre-tape?
Because the pre-tapes are in English, Liam.
Yeah, but everywhere speaks English.
Guy, mate. Mike Tenay welcomes all the people internationally watching on MediaZone.com on what Mike Tenay calls the World Wide Web.
Wow, that's the WWW.
The color photography in the World Wide Web blowing Mike Tenay's mind here in 2006.
The cultural advances of 2006.
Wait until he sees that there's color photography on the World Wide Web.
Oh my god.
Shelley wins this match with the slice bread number 2, which Tenay also calls a Shiranui, so shout out to Namichi Marufuji.
What?
Mike Tenay uses the nerd name for the move as well as the American name for the move.
Yeah, I just wanted your pronunciation again.
Namichi Marufuji?
There you go.
I just said it too quick.
Maybe it cut off me, but it sounded like you said Namichi Marufuji. And I was like, okay.
Listen, we're now 2 hours deep into part 2 of this recording, so don't expect me to say words without mumbling.
I think I'm the one who's meant to be not saying words well.
It's only like nearly 3 a.m. for you. Get over it.
My stomach hurts.
The other match on the pay-per-view, Chris Sabin defeated Petey Williams, Sanjay Dutt, and Puma.
I went less on this than the 3-way, but I think this is my favorite match of the month.
They do just let these 4 guys go out there and have a cool wrestling match.
They just do shit for a lot of time.
Because it is funny. We were talking about how, like, the build to the show is pretty good, but, like, the build to the last 3 matches is pretty good. The build to everything before the last 3 matches, other than Bob Armstrong, is borderline non-existent. So to fix that, they're just like, let's throw 4 good wrestlers out there, give them 15 minutes, and just let them go.
And it's good. And it builds up the World X Cup nicely.
Yeah, it works out pretty nicely. As we mentioned, the original iteration of this match was meant to be Shinsuke Nakamura in there instead of Puma, but they replaced Nakamura because he doesn't really work in X Division style.
Oh, but it'd be so funny.
And they were hoping to get Mystico in the place of Sanjay, but that fell through, and they were then meant to get Durango Kid as the CMLL representative, but that also fell through, so Sanjay ended up working the match.
Oh, Mystico. Imagine how the course of history...
Mystico could have been a TNA guy?
You could have had a bad TNA run instead of a bad WWE run.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because I was like, TNA currently don't have a very good track record with international stars. There is Apollo, terrible.
Mystico in LAX.
There is Shocker, who was fine, but he wasn't pushed. And, like, the closest they came to doing well was Hector Garza, and then circumstances intervened in that one. Like, they were actually getting behind Hector Garza, and then...
I was working with him.
And then everything happened that kind of took him off the table. So, like, not a great record, but so you wonder, like, if they did have Mystico, how would that work out? Probably, as you said, not very well, but it would be interesting to see.
Yeah. But also, like, how wicked how different, you know?
Mike Tenay mentions here that Puma has been wrestling since he was 15. He is wearing a mask, so I cannot put that in context.
He could still be 15.
He could be like 17. He could be wrestling for 2 years. I don't know. He's a masked wrestler. I can't see his face. I get no gauge of what age he is.
Should have told me what age he is.
It sounded like when doing the introductions that Penzer called Sanjay Sean J. As I said, like not every X Division match you've ever seen, because that sounds dismissive. But like it is like the classic 4 dudes in an X Division match. They're going wild. They're doing stuff. Decent showing for Puma in his first like real, because he did some stuff in 04. But in his first like proper pay-per-view match, good showing for young Puma, young Manic.
We were talking about before how it's kind of weird that TJ Shoot Trash has had 3 masked gimmicks.
Yeah.
Like, and you wouldn't expect like 3 different masked gimmicks too.
For a dude who's like objectively handsome, particularly in the younger parts of his career, it's like, no, we got to stick a mask on this monster.
I guess maybe when he was younger, it was just. I mean, people always have to like allocate reasons, but sometimes people just want to be a masked wrestler.
It might also be the case that because he started wrestling so young, that they're like, we got to put a mask on this guy. He's 17.
Yeah.
We can't have people realizing just how young this guy looks. So masks him up, baby. PD kills Dutt with the Destroyer. Sabin pins Puma with the Cradle Shock as Chris Sabin has momentum. Good match. Good showing for the upcoming World X Cup. And if you're going to fill out a pay-per-view with just a filler X Division match, just put 4 guys in and let them have a good match for 15 minutes. It's a good idea. That's the way to do it.
I didn't see, but did they do a thing with PD and Sabin and them avoiding the finishes in this?
They didn't. He didn't go for a Cradle Shock on Sabin, so.
Yeah, okay. Because I was like, I expect those two to keep that thread going for every match they have.
Every single match they ever have to do the drop to the knee to counter the Destroyer.
Well, it should just be the thing that that PD just can't hit it on it. Sabin should always get ways out of it.
But he didn't go for it on Sabin on this one. He knows. He's just like, I gotta hit Sanjay with the Destroyer.
Honestly,
I'm
fine with that too. That makes just as much sense.
There is going to come a point where he's just going to hit Sabin with a Destroyer, and you're going to be devastated.
Unless they play into it, like he gets out of it once, turns around, gets him in it the second time.
But yeah, if you're going to like the other random match thrown on the show was Alex Shelley Jay Lethal, which didn't really have any story. They just threw that match on the pay-per-view, and like thumbs up. Alex Shelley Jay Lethal was a good match to throw on the show for no reason. And we end the show as we always do with 3LK family drama.
This mother is a bad jam.
Beware.
And boy, it's actually exciting this time.
I think, like, listen, objectively, if you were to say that, is this a good way to introduce LAX to get their ass kicked by a really old man? The answer is no. Like, if you're being, like, truly critical and, like, being like, oh, analyzing the wrestling, being like, oh, you know...
ROH champion homicide.
Yeah, is that good for those guys? The answer is no.
But
every Bob Armstrong segment on television fucking rocks.
Because he's awesome.
He's so good.
And genuine and earnest and everything you want from a babyface.
Yeah. There's not an ounce of cynicism. It's a good story. Thumbs up.
But let's get into it. Let's get into the gritty details.
February 18th Impact. LAX face La Migra.
Okay, great. I was talking about this. All I miss, okay? I miss when jobbers had gimmicks that suited the people they were wrestling. Like if you have a character and this is your character, you should beat up a job guy that happens to have the opposite of your gimmick. And I'm into this.
It is very funny that La Migra is the three-man combination of Donovan Morgan, Mike Modest, and Ryan Drago. Ryan Drago, by the way, a young Simon Gotch.
I thought he looked like Simon Gotch. I was like, this guy really looks like Simon Gotch.
It's because it is. It's a young Simon Gotch who recently made his actual first TNA appearance against Josh Alexander at No Surrender. So there you go.
And it widely regarded positively.
It is funny how like Donovan Morgan and Mike Modest are like dressed in the gimmick. There's the La Migra gimmick is clearly theirs, and also Ryan Drago's just there too in his regular wrestling gear.
La Migra is a babyface because like John West is like, yeah, send him back.
It is very strange, because Mike Tenay explains to us that La Migra is slang for immigration or border control. And then, as you said, Don West suggests that somebody needs to send LAX back across the border. So it's like this racist act who are like trying to kick migrants out of a country are the baby faces.
Homicide born.
Yeah. Listen, you don't need accuracy in your wrestling storytelling. Come on.
I'm just happy Homicide's here. I'm ready for fucking Hernandez to get in here so we can start, grooving.
Yeah, LAX at the moment is still Homicide, Machete, and Conan.
I don't mind Machete, but I just want some proper LAX,
They pinned Drago with the Steiner Bulldog and then jumped them after the match. The crowd chant, "Where's your green card?" at them. Seems very rude. As you said, Homicide doesn't need one.
They should chant that at Team Canada.
Conan says Bob doesn't have a wrestling license, but if he can get one, he'll kill him.
And he says it in a way less awesome way than that.
Well, yeah, he said last time we sent you to the hospital, next time it'll be permanent. But he is threatening to kill him.
Yeah, but he's threatening to put him in hospital permanently.
That's death.
That's not death. That's technically living.
So coma?
Or just so beaten so bad he could never get off the machines.
Okay. Low-Key was considered for LAX, but he will be booked in the X division instead.
Oh my god, Loki and Homicide as proper LAX?
Which you do actually get if you wait long enough.
At the beatdown plan?
No, for a very brief period, Loki is in LAX in 2017.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh yes, 2017.
For a very, very brief run until Loki quits again, because he's Loki, but shout out to Loki for quitting.
Where's Selena?
She shows up in 2008.
Oh, I forget that this stable goes forever.
Yeah, 2007? Around then. There's some fun notes about Loki this month.
There's always fun notes about Loki.
Where it's like, Loki might be coming back, but he's asking for more money than last time, so he's getting heat. It's like, yeah, fucking Loki's the best.
But also, I don't know, fucking can him. He should ask for more money.
Yeah, last time he was here was 2004, when the company was broken in the asylum. Now they're on Spike and on television. You should be asking for more money.
Yeah.
Ricky Vega isn't considered ready yet. That's Machete. So Hot Stuff for Hernandez is slated to replace Apollo full-time in LAX. There is also interest in Ricky Banderas, but he is locked into a contract in Puerto Rico, so TNA may not be able to sign him at this time. There was more stuff in the Observer about how they were willing to let them use Ricky Banderas, but there was still some concern that he'd be assigned to a contract in Puerto Rico, so that you wouldn't have control over him and his bookings and all of that. You might run into some of the same problems they're running into other people with that stuff, so they were still reluctant to use him.
Garrett, LAX, Hernandez and Homicide had a match 4 months.
Really? Who was against?
Nathan Cruz and Miles Kane.
Hell yeah, a dream match.
In England.
Oh, boo.
Come on, England.
Boo.
Come on, England.
The TNA booking team is not familiar with Homicide's work in Ring of Honor, so they're not sure how much to invest in him at this point.
Like the best. Best ever.
He's also been working with an injured shoulder, which has slowed him down, and he will continue to have tape on for the rest of his life.
The OGs, Garrett. The OGs, damn it.
Dave goes into, part of the reason they chose not to go with Loki is because they'd be wrestling the James Gang, and they thought that Loki and Homicide would be too small next to BG, and particularly Kip, who was humongous.
They could also kill him.
So there's the thought to get someone bigger in there like Hernandez to even out the size discrepancies.
It's Loki and Homicide.
Well, Garrett, you can't have it.
Garrett, I want it.
No.
I never get anything I want in TNA in 2006 when I was 9.
Earlier in that show, JB had the James Gang. They said, not Batman and not Robin, not the Lone Ranger and Tonto. It's Brian and Kip James. And then BG, for some reason, said, you can't say that on television. And I'm like, which part of that?
I was going to say something.
Was he going to say racism?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Was he going to say Billy Gunn and Road Dogg?
I don't know. He was going to say something, and I thought it was racist. But maybe that's just me assuming it's BGG.
Bob walks in and does this awesome promo where it's like, I don't care about my knees. If I have to crawl, I'll get revenge on the LAX. It's like, they took my pride from me and I'm taking it back.
Yeah. Shoutouts to a great BG line. It said, oh, Mum's gonna kill me.
Oh, giving BG James credit. Oh.
He's good at one-liners.
And his promo last month was pretty... And he did do... Before the pay-per-view match, he does say, I'm not going to do my catchphrases because this is serious. So he's finally listened to you.
He's learning. BG James, in 2006, listened to this podcast and was like, I gotta put...
February 25, Impact. Team Canada faced the James Gang. It was kind of wild to me watching BG and Kip do an entrance, how, like, they feel like a complete non-factor. Like, after all the build they did to BG and Kip teaming for the first time in a few years as well, because they didn't team in WWF for a few years as well. So, like, it's a big Attitude Era act back together for the first time in years. And they come out on TV and I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel important at all. They should care, though, right? They weren't, they were a meaningful hot act in the Attitude Era. You can't take that away from them.
I'm taking it away from them.
Yeah, that's fair. BG hits the catchphrases, but then the Canadians jump him. Short match that ends when LAX run in and slapjack BG, allowing Rude to hit the Northern Lariat for the win. They slapjack him again as Bullet Bob comes out, and then just fucking runs wild on LAX.
Yeah.
Which, again, if you're like, good for LAX? No. But is it awesome when he starts throwing punches on Homicide and Machete?
Am I hooting and hollering while it's happening? Yes.
Yeah, then he stares down Conan, and Mike Tenay and Don West are like, fucking get him, this is the moment. And then Conan bails as we set up a 6-man tag for the pay-per-view.
Conan runs away.
He literally flees in terror from this 66-year-old man who just had knee surgery. It's so good. Everything Bob does is so good. There's not much actual full build to that match. That's pretty much it.
But it was awesome.
Yeah, Mike Tenay announces in the Go Home main event that the 6-man tag has been made for the pay-per-view. It's official. It's LAX versus the James Gang and Bullet Bob Armstrong. So they do have a promo package before the match where they refer to Bob Armstrong as the tribal elder.
Yeah. Again, everyone steals everything from TNA. Clearly the bloodline... I mean, clearly BG James pitched it.
Well, it's funny to think. So Bob was the tribal elder. Bob sadly passed away a few years ago.
Did Roman Reigns inherit it after that?
Well, my question is, should BG be pissed? Because BG, I guess, is the tribal elder now. Maybe Scott. I'm not sure who's older. Scott Armstrong might be older.
Maybe Armstrong. The Armstrongs and the Fatus have a weird blood pact like Rock's family.
So the Armstrongs, after Bob passed away, the Armstrongs declared fealty to the Fatus and passed the tribal elder title over to Roman Reigns. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah. That's what I'm guessing.
The feature before the match kind of rocked as well.
Tell me about it.
I don't know. This is just like, it's because it's mostly featuring Bob kicking ass and doing promos. Yeah. And it does have like the good BG.
And it has a sweet music.
It's some sweet music. That good BG promo from last week where it's like, you did that to my daddy or whatever the line was. It's like, oh, it's all the good stuff from this. After a year, Liam. Against all odds, 2005 is when Kip James debuted and when this thing started. We have been doing this for 13 months and finally we have some good stuff in this feud.
Yeah, we got there. I never doubted it for a second.
Bob is rocking a singlet.
It's because he's a real goddamn wrestler.
His fucking younger son wrestling in a t-shirt and he comes out wearing a singlet. BG is finally like, I'm not going to do my catchphrases because you hurt my dad and we're going to fight. He does, however, close the promo saying blood is thicker than mud, which felt very racist. Mike Tenay points out that Bob first wrestled in 1962 and that the boots he is wearing are 30 years old.
He got that information on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, there's color photos of those boots, I heard. There's actually not. It would be a better bit if they were in black and white. The boots are frankly too old to have color photos. The match entirely builds around getting basically Conan and Bob facing off, and Bob finally gets his hands on Conan, and he just starts beating his ass. So he starts throwing punches on Conan, and there's this great moment where Conan bails out to the floor, but his hands start falling down. So he starts having to do this like waddle to try and get away from Bob, but then Bob catches him, lays him over the announce desk, and starts laying down punches on Conan, while Don West is like mirroring the punches behind him. He's like, yeah!
It's awesome. I mean, it's kind of worked perfectly.
Because like the match is like 6 minutes. It's like they don't waste your time. They don't pretend to be anything it's not. They're not like dragging this thing out or making you watch too much Billy Gunn wrestling. It's like a little bit of heat, get to Bob coming in, running wild, kicking ass, straight to the finish. No wasted motion, exactly what it should be. So Homicide tries to use a chair, but Bob grabs it. BG kicks the chair into Homicide's face as Kip pins Machete with the Missouri boat ride, and the Armstrongs stand tall.
Now we're ready for the Fatus versus the Armstrongs.
Well, you would have to get Billy Gunn, the adopted James, over to back to WWE, which they should do. Maybe I would approve of that. Conan is also to join the Armstrongs.
Yep.
Or no, 3LK versus the Bloodline.
Now that's money.
Could you imagine if WWE did it in like 2024, did a 3 Live Crew nostalgia run?
It would be perfect.
It would be so funny.
Remember those few years back when they did like the New Age Outlaws reunion run? This is what they need to do. They need to do it again.
So you would do 4LK? You would include Billy Gunn?
Yeah.
Once again, just to get him out of AEW. And get Conan out of AAA. This is working on multiple fronts.
The entire world is saved. Wrestling saved.
Everything is better off due to this 4 Live Crew nostalgia run. But yeah, this rocked. Bob Armstrong rules. He's the best. And that is the month it is. March 2006, Destination X 2006. In your Patreon feed right now is our watch along of Destination X 2006, tnhi.com, patreon.com/kiddingme. We'll be back in the next couple of weeks with our Rain Tickers episode on Wrestle Kingdom from 2014, as well as another episode of A Gift of the Pods covering Lucha Underground.
Not a very discussed show. Nothing happened.
No, not famous for any reason. Not the show I went to, which I haven't watched since I was there.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yeah, so that's a fun thing. I haven't seen that show other than seeing it live. So I'll be watching it back for the first time and having vivid memories of going to Japan to see Wrestle Kingdom before everybody did that. I was cool. I saw New Japan before.
A taste maker.
Going there every year. But yeah, those will be coming to your Patreon feed soon enough. tnhchat.com, patreon.com/kiddingme. Follow us on Twitter at TNHistoryPod. Follow me on Twitter at Garrett Kidney. Liam on Twitter at The Gleet Muda. Subscribe to us on YouTube at You've Got to Be Kidding Me. Follow us on TikTok at TNA History. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.
Do the damn thing.